What's going on, guys? Welcome to another edition of the Halas Hall Hangover with the Four-Star Chicago Sports Podcast. As you can see, we are short a couple of stars, guys. Sean and Dustin had some personal things to attend to. That's all right, though. Me and Kyle are going to carry this thing along, as we always do on Monday night. Kyle, how you doing tonight?
Good, man. How are you doing?
Oh, not too bad, man. I think I'm feeling better with every passing loss. Waking up on Monday, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Doesn't have the same sting. So.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of negatives in this game. Obviously, the Bears do not want to keep losing. That could take a toll on players for sure. But they're definitely starting to look more like a football team every time we turn on the TV. And it's nice to see the Bears and Caleb Williams show up against division rivals. I mean, his last two games may have been his best two games as a professional.
Yeah, we're going to dive into that game, guys, in a little bit. But real quick, before Monday night kicks off, the Harbaugh Bowl, right? This is the last time I think these two guys have faced each other since the Super Bowl, in which the Niners lost to the Ravens. We are going to start doing a 4 stars, 4-leg parlay for every Monday night football game. That's going to be something Kyle's putting together. We're doing this on really short notice tonight, however, so he's going to give you 3 legs that he feels confident in. Kyle, go ahead.
Yeah, so obviously, you guys, I understand that the Los Angeles Chargers have a very good run defense, but Derrick Henry has scored a touchdown in every single game this year, and I will continue to take him to do so until he does not. So, I mean, ultimately, if they get down to the 1-yard line, it doesn't matter how good the run defense for the Chargers is. If he gets to the 1-yard line, Derrick Henry's going to get in the end zone. So, I like Derrick Henry as an anytime touchdown scorer in this game. I like I don't like anything about the Ravens secondary right now. They are ranked dead last in the NFL, particularly against fantasy players. So I like Ladd McConkey over 50 receiving yards, and I like Justin Herbert to throw over 250 passing yards.
All right, you guys heard it there. Herbert, McConkey, and another anytime touchdown for Derrick Henry, guys. Yeah, that's starting to be a safe bet. There's negative odds. I mean, that's ridiculous.
I mean, it's not just negative odds. It's the most negative odds of any player in the NFL to score a touchdown, which it should be.
Sean said early this offseason that he was going to have a season like this, and he certainly is, man. So, Kyle, I know there's been some news from the Bears today regarding Arlington, the property they bought. Might be the new location for their stadium. What's going on with that?
Yeah, so as we know, Brennan, I mean, obviously we are not in the meeting rooms. We don't know exactly what's going on in Arlington there, but we do understand that the Bears have failed to reach a deal with the city of Arlington Heights on the tax valuation. And it sounds like today the Bears did reach a tentative deal with Arlington Heights over potential stadium deals. So basically what that means is the team officials have announced they've reached a tentative deal with the village of Arlington Heights and local school district leaders who've sparred with the Bears over the property tax valuation on the Shutter Arlington International Racecourse. So basically what that means is the Bears and the Arlington Heights powers that be, the brass, have decided that they've come to a decision that they are. It looks like the Bears are going to move forward and put a stadium there. Now, the Bears came out in response today and said that their number one desired location is still the city of Chicago. But I mean, Brennan, how much can we pause?
You can quit the bluff now.
Yeah, I mean, you spent $290 or $198 million on this property. Then you spent more money to knock down the racetrack. They also got rid of, I don't know if you know, there was in the middle of the racetrack there was like a little pond, basically. It looks like the Bears have already gotten rid of that. That cost them money. They've prepped this land for not only a Bear stadium, but basically an oasis. I mean, they've prepped this land to put bars, restaurants, entertainment. And now seems like they've reached a tentative deal with Arlington Heights on a tax valuation. So I don't understand if the Bears aren't planning on going to Arlington Heights, then they're wasting their time.
They strong-armed them and it worked, and that's where they'll be, guys. It sounds like that's...
I expect shovels to be in the ground, Brandon, by this time next year. I expect Arlington Heights, the Bears, to start building construction.
We shall see. Certainly, I know that's something Kevin Warren has been working on, guys. And again, that is news that we got today. I do want to give a shout out to Breaking News, Bruce and Zach. Zach's in the chat today. He says Quentin Johnson over 50 yards and Will Dissly over 40 yards are also a couple of parlays you can throw in there, guys. I'm guessing you took the alternative on Dissly's yards.
So Zach, I actually have Will Dissly over 50. I put that in my parlay. It was a 4-leg parlay. That's just the one I feel the least confident in. because as good as Will Disley has been as of late, and as bad as the Baltimore Ravens are against tight ends, they're actually ranked 10th against the position. Will Disley only has a handful of, 3 games this year, I think, where he has over 50 yards. So I'm just say buyer beware on that one, but I wouldn't surprise me at all if Will Disley has a big game against the Ravens, because the Ravens force you to throw the ball. They're going to stop the run, and they're going to make the Chargers throw the ball. So I wouldn't be surprised at all if Will Disley has over 40 or 50 yards receiving. That's just one of those ones where I'm kind of on the fence, so I don't want to steer you guys in the wrong direction. But for sure, I definitely like Lab McConkey over 50 yards receiving. I definitely like Justin Herbert over 250 yards passing, and I definitely like Derrick Henry to score a touchdown.
Yeah, it's going to be a good game, guys. Like I said, the Harbaugh Bowl. This is the two brothers, John and Jim, head coaches, meeting each other once again since the last time they did, which was in the Super Bowl. Should be a fun game. All right, Kyle, let's move on to the recap of the Bears-Vikings. I really want to focus on 3 major things in this football game. I want to focus on Matt Eberflus. I want to focus on Thomas Brown. And I want to focus on Caleb Williams. I think we'll start. Give me the bad news first, right? Matt Eberflus. There's a couple of plays specifically that I want to talk about, man. But just overall, this defense is just getting beat. And I think it's got a lot to do with injuries, but I also think it has a lot to do with coaching as well. The 2 plays, man, that I want to talk about most, well, 3 actually, but one, the 2-point conversion. I'm at a loss here, man. I mean, what am I not understanding? What is the majority of Chicago not understanding, Kyle? Why the 2-point conversion? The failed attempt. Why the 2-point conversion?
Vernon, there's no way to understand it because it just logically doesn't make sense. Why the Bears went for 2? The only thing I could think of that would the reason the Bears went for 2 points instead of kicking the extra point is they were afraid the extra point was going to be blocked. I mean, the Bears at the beginning of this game had a field goal block. That would have been the second field goal in as many tries. And maybe they just didn't have confidence in the line holding up. I don't know. But I mean, it's just another head scratcher for Matt Eberflus. There's numerous head scratchers in this game. We will get into them as the show goes on here, but that was the first one in the game where I was like, Sean and I turned to each other and was like, what is he doing now? What? It's funny too, Brennan, because they had just in the game, they had just gone for a 4th down instead of kicking. I mean, the Bears just continue to hand points off to give away points to the opposing team. It just doesn't make sense to me. And there really is no way. If you look at Matt Eberflus, you look at his career and his time with the Bears so far, it's getting to the point where there's actually nothing left to defend him. There's nothing left for us to defend Matt Eberflus. We'll get into this in a little bit, but I mean, early in the season, Vernon, we talked time and time again that we all believed that he was still a good defensive coordinator and a good defensive coach. That time has passed, Vernon. I mean, this is not the same Bears defense anymore. And if you're going to tell me that's all because of one player, the loss of Andrew Billings, that's not acceptable to me because every single team in the NFL deals with major injuries. Every team in the NFL. And to go from top 5 or top 7 in every statistical category on defense to drop out of the top 10 in almost all of them is not acceptable. That's just not acceptable. I mean, there's really no excuses left from Eberflus. He's running out of time. I believe that the Bears are just delaying the inevitable, and he will be fired. As a matter of fact, like you said for today, Brennan, David Kaplan's convinced that there's a chance he might be fired after the Detroit game on Thanksgiving if
We're gonna talk about that a little
bit.
But
You want to address Zach's comment here? He says Arlington Heights deal is just to pay less taxes on an empty lot that at this point doesn't have any plans to build a stadium before they have to reevaluate their taxes again. Yeah, I'm going to have to disagree with you, Zach. Obviously, none of us know what the Bears are doing. Kevin Warren's been playing this game with basically it's a bunch of politicians playing a game right now. We have no idea what their plans are. He continues to say time and time again that he wants the stadium to be in Chicago. But I mean, ultimately, Zach, when it comes to politicians, Kevin Warren has no say over guys like J.B. Pritzker. And Pritzker has already said numerous times, there's absolutely no chance in hell, no shot in any way, shape, or form that the Bears are getting a new stadium in the city of Chicago. So if that's the case and that's true, and you're talking about one of the most powerful men in the state of Illinois, and J.B. Pritzker, as a matter of fact, there are 9 billionaires in the state of Illinois. 6 of them have the last name Pritzker. He's not going to win that battle against J.B. Pritzker. So either there's 2 options here, Zach. Either they can build the stadium in Arlington Heights and come up with more money and build the stadium themselves and own it, or there is going to be no new stadium for the Chicago Bears because we know for a fact it is not going downtown Chicago. We know that for a fact. It is not going to make it downtown Chicago. We're not getting a stadium in Chicago. We know that.
So you said something that I want to talk about real quick regarding Matt Eberflus, man. Well, first off, I think that he's kind of almost inside his own head at this point as a play caller, as well as losing this team as a head coach, because Sam Darnold was injured in a play in this game, and Nick Mullins, I believe his name's Nick Mullins, came in to play one snap, guys. I believe it was a 3rd and 13. Kyle, correct me if I'm wrong. 3rd and 13. And Matt Eberflus, a defensive coach with a backup quarterback on a long 3rd down, just gives like a 12-yard cushion, no press, backs off coverage, plays almost a prevent, no pressure at all, 4-man rush, not very strong, almost like he was focused more on coverage than pressure on a backup quarterback. And what does he leave there? The middle of the field. Aaron Jones catches a check down for, I think, 15 yards or something. He gets the first down. So Flus literally gave a backup quarterback about the most comfortable throw that he could have to get out of one play, right? It's like a relief pitcher coming in to take care of one last batter in the ninth, and the team on offense puts out their ball boy to bat. I mean, like, it doesn't make any sense at all. It doesn't make sense. Why wouldn't you play press just the same as the play before the Hail Mary in Washington? Why would you play so soft on a play with a backup quarterback?
Yeah, I mean, Vernon, this is becoming a theme with the Chicago Bears late in games, especially in close games. I mean, basically what they're doing is playing prevent defense. And we've talked about this many times on the show. Prevent defense only loses games. That's all it does. There's not a single player, writer, analyst in sports that likes prevent defense in the NFL. And it wasn't just that play with Aaron Jones, Vernon. I mean, you make a good point. They should have pressured Nick Mullins for sure. First time in the game, huge moment, late in the fourth quarter, 3rd and 12, what it was, 3rd and long. You should have put pressure on him, but it was the whole fourth quarter and overtime. I mean, they had Tremaine Edmonds playing 6 yards off of TJ Hawkinson the entire fourth quarter and overtime. TJ Hawkinson was basically playing in open space for the entire fourth quarter. I mean, the Bears continue to do this thing where they play this tight defense, which I will say, Brennan, for the most part in this game, the Bears were not very good on defense, right? I think we could both agree to that. They did not. They ended up giving up 452 total yards of offense. That's not the Chicago Bears we've seen through the first 11 weeks of the season. But here we are again, late in the game where the Bears need it most. And what is Matt Eberflus doing? He's letting this defense walk up the field, letting the opposing offense walk up the field, giving them open space, letting them do the checkdowns, the underneaths. But here's the problem: is lately, the past 3 weeks, past month, you could say, the Bears have not been good at tackling. They have not been sure tacklers. And so when you give these guys 6, 7, 8 yard catches, they're turning them into the first downs almost every time. 10, 11, 12 yard passes. This is not a recipe for winning football games. All the prevent defense does is lose games. I don't know how many times this guy has to be, it's like fool me once, shame on you, fool me twice, shame on me. I mean, this has been 3 years now we've been dealing with this. 3 years. It's just another game where the Bears had basically a 50-50 chance of winning the game late in the game, and they lost again because of coaching decisions.
They had a higher than 50. When they received the kickoff in overtime, their win percentage was probably above 70, I would imagine.
Well, yeah, and Bernie, you're talking about analytically, but realistically, if you talk about percentage to win the game, you could see that the Vikings were deflated after allowing that that late touchdown, then the onside kick, then the field goal to tie the game. All the momentum was going in the Bears' direction, all of it. And then the Bears won the coin toss and decided to receive the ball. I'm like, man, there's no way they lose this game. But there is if Matt Eberflus is the head football coach of your team. That's the only way you can lose games like that. And the Packers game, and the Lions game from last year, and the Broncos game from last year, and the Browns game from I mean, he just keeps piling up these losses. And like I said, I mean, Bernard, you want to talk about Matt Eberflus? Here's the first before the bye week. These are the first 6 games before the bye week, right? Here you go. Against Tennessee, the Bears allowed 244 total yards of offense. Against Houston, 310. Against Indianapolis, 306. Against the Rams, 322. Against Carolina, 292. Against Jacksonville, 278. So every game they allowed 322 total yards of offense or less. You want to hear after the bye week, Brennan? After your team's supposed to address the issues and get better? Here's after the bye week. Every game since. Against Washington, 481 yards of total offense allowed. It's almost 500 yards of offense against Washington. Rookie quarterback. Against Arizona, 350 yards allowed. Against New England, 328 yards of offense allowed. Against the New England Patriots. Against Green Bay, almost 400, 366. And against Minnesota, 452. So this team has gotten worse in almost every statistical category since their bye week. That's unacceptable.
Well, what I do want to address, man, is the loss of Billings has been pretty tremendous. And I want to say the impact that it's making which has surprised me because I always looked at Billings as a big bodied nose tackle that takes up space. And the run defense has definitely gotten worse. But I mean, this guy, it feels it right now, Kyle, like he was literally the anchor to this pass rush. I mean, it's gone. Since the exit of Andrew Billings, this pass rush is gone. And yes, Dexter had a great game and Walker had a good game, but not at getting to the quarterback. I mean, it just feels like these there's been so many third downs in the last couple weeks where the opposing quarterback just had way too much time to throw the ball. And your secondary, I mean, they're good, but they can't cover forever. So I mean, and another thing, man, about Eberflus is I thought I mean, it didn't end up being detrimental to them winning or losing the game, but I thought his usage of the last timeout they had, the three timeouts they had going that final drive, I thought was strange. He let like he let the clock run from what was it, Kyle? Close to a minute to like 20 something seconds left.
Yeah, it's just the clock management time and time again with Matt Eberflus just gets worse and worse every game. I mean, you figured at some point you'd learn from your own mistakes, at least make a different, do something different so you're not getting destroyed by the national media. But time and time again, Matt Eberflus tries the same thing over and over, and it's not working. That's the definition of insanity, Brennan. And you have Scott, what's up, Scott Angel? How you doing? Here, Scott Angel says, "I'm done with Eberflus, ever lose." He calls him in Stevenson. This team is so undisciplined. Sacks against, penalties, bonehead plays, horrible game management, horrible time management. The list goes on and on. Yes, I agree with you 100%, Scott. Like I said, there's nothing left for Matt Eberflus to hang his hat on. I mean, if you're the Bears, you're Kevin Warren, George McCaskey, Ryan Poles, and you're having a meeting about the pros and cons of keeping Matt Eberflus. Where are the pros? There are no pros left. This guy is absolutely.
And he's running out of scapegoats because Flus is reaching for whatever he can while he sinks. He fired Waldron, and the offense got better, but the team's still losing football games. That's not good, guys.
Yeah, and if you notice, it's no longer the offense's fault. It's the reason they're losing football games is no longer the offense's fault. They
yeah, and I'm going to say this.
Points, but
I'm going to say this too.
What's going on, Matt?
The blocked field goal and the muffed punt by Carter both led to touchdowns for the Vikings. So is Richard Hightower the next domino to fall so that Flus can scapegoat himself into one more week as the Bears head coach? Because the special teams now, 2 blocked field goals. You have one that would dictate a game winner against Green Bay, and then you have the very next field goal after the blocked field goal is blocked again. And which by the way, guys, what Tevin Jenkins did on that play was incredible. He was like pulling 2 very large defensive tackles in one direction on that play while the field goal was still getting blocked on the other side. But you have a blocked field goal to lose the Packers game. You have a blocked field goal for the very next kick. The very next time this guy kicks a ball, it's blocked again. And then you have the muffed punt. And special teams is starting to have an impact on these Bears games too in a losing manner.
No, yeah, Brendan, if you listen to Matt Eberflus's post-game press conference or his interview this morning on 670, I mean, or sorry, ESPN 1000, this guy is, once again, it sounds like he's trying to make Richard Hightower a scapegoat. Now, listen, I'm not going to sit here and defend Richard Hightower because I don't honestly believe he's a very good coach. I don't think Richard Hightower should be the Bears special teams coach.
No, you're seeing, Kyle, you notice you're seeing a lot of them now, like on TV. Like they're constantly showing him. That's a bad thing.
Yeah, and I
never feel like if a coordinator is being shown more often than not, especially more often than a head coach on a sideline, you're doing something wrong. It's not good.
And, it's 2 games in a row that the special teams has a major factor in losing these games. I mean, Vernon, I would argue that even more detrimental to the Bears than that blocked field goal was the fumble you mentioned by Carter. Why was he standing? Like, what is he doing? What was Carter doing?
It was weird because he called the ball off. He called coverage off. He called everyone off to get away from the bounce.
Yeah.
But then stood directly in front of the trajectory.
Where did he think the ball was going to go? I was confused.
And DeAndre Carter's been a serviceable returner. Honestly, man, every time he goes out there, I think to myself, at least we're not going to get a blunder here because he's been pretty solid there. He did fumble that ball though, and that was at a really, really important part of that game. And he gave the Packers like a 20. I will say this, man, that the Bears defense, 2 of those touchdowns, the blocked field goal and the muffed punt, very short fields for Minnesota, and you can't give Minnesota 20-yard fields. That's not. It's not going to
Well,
work in your favor. This is an
well, and you
offense
know
that can
what?
score, especially in the red zone.
We continue to every
What's up,
weekend.
Matt? Sorry.
Week in and week out, the Bears continue to have these boneheaded plays like the Carter play on Sunday against the Vikings, and people continue to point to, oh, is it Hightower? Is it this? I mean, cumulatively, it doesn't matter, right? Ultimately, if you continue to have all these boneheaded plays every single week for like the Stevenson, Hail Mary, this stuff ultimately needs to fall on the head coach. These guys are not disciplined. They're not being held accountable, and they've talked about it before. These guys have talked about it time and time again. When we do things wrong in practice, we're not being corrected. So has Andre Carter done that in practice? Has he stood in the front of the trajectory of a punt and let it bounce off of him and a fumble and nobody said anything about it? They were like, whatever, just move on to the next play. You have to start to question how much of the stuff is happening in practice, how much of the stuff is being accounted for, how much of it's being corrected. I don't think any of it is, Brandon. I think I am starting to believe that Matt Eberflus could be inching his way towards worst coach all time for the Chicago Bears. I mean, if you start to look at he's setting records about how of things he's doing that are historically terrible and bad for the Chicago Bears. He has the longest losing streak in Bears history.
You want to hear something insane? I don't know that this. I could be wrong on the figure. Between the 5 games where they had an over 90% chance win rate, and then the Packers game, which I believe they had a 79% chance win.
76, I believe, yeah.
To lose all 6 games, he had a 1 in 62 million chance.
68.
68. To lose all 6 of those games. Think about it. Wrap your head around that, man. A 1 in 68 million chance to lose all 6 of these football games. And only Flus found a way. The Bears are finding ways, guys, to lose football games.
Yeah, Bernard. And if that stat, if you're Ryan Poles or you're George McCaskey and that stat scrolls across your computer, would that not be enough to fire somebody? I mean, Bernard, do you understand the odds of 1 in 68? I mean, that is what they're saying. It was nearly impossible. Like there are probably coaches in the NFL with certain teams, excuse me, who could try to lose those 5 games and couldn't pull it off. They couldn't pull it off.
The odds of getting struck by lightning are probably higher than
it is.
The
odds of winning the Illinois lottery are higher than losing all 6 of the games that the Bears have lost the last 2 years. Real quick, Brennan, Scott Angel says, in regards to the defense and their poor play, once again allowing 452 total yards of offense to the Minnesota Vikings, Brisker hurts as well. I'd say it's fair to say that it's a combination of the two, right? I mean, ultimately, you lose Andrew Billings, and it doesn't sound like he's coming back anytime this year. It sounds like he's going to be out for the rest of the season. And when you lose that pressure, the pressure of the opposing quarterback, then your secondary starts to look worse. Now you throw in the fact that you're playing with second and third string players in that secondary, and it starts to look a lot worse. Now, I will say, Vernon, Jonathan Owens as poorly as he did play in that game, because there was flashes in that game where he looked really, really bad and was not good in coverage. And then Vernon, as you remember, the attempted tackle on Jordan Addison down the sideline there by Jonathan Owens, where he couldn't get him down. And Jordan Addison added another 40 yards after that attempted tackle. I mean, Owens did make some splash plays. And I think that's kind of who Owens has been for the entirety of his career, right? Even when he was playing in Green Bay. Like the guy can make good plays. He makes splash plays. He's a ball hawk. But at the same, like that strip fumble, that strip he took away from Aaron Jones at the 2-yard line early in the game, that was amazing. That was absolutely amazing. That's one of the best plays I've seen by a Bear all season. But then he has these boneheaded plays like that attempted tackle on Jordan Addison down the right sideline. You know, there's no excuse. You can't keep doing this thing where you're like, oh, well, he's making good plays and bad plays at the same time. Can it kind of even out? No, you have to stop that stuff. The boneheaded plays for the Chicago Bears needs to stop, because you go watch the championship caliber teams like the Chiefs and the Eagles. They don't have those plays. They don't do that. They don't do that stuff.
Well, and he is the third string safety on this football team. I mean, he played well enough to be on a football team, right? I mean, the guy's he's not dependent upon. He's there for depth, and I thought he played better than Hicks did last week. And he's a playmaker, but you're right, Kyle. He's not sound in his technique, which is why he's probably not a starter on any football team in the NFL, and he shouldn't be. I agree with you from what I saw. I'm happy to have him as depth, and this secondary has a lot of depth. Owens is just another piece that you feel pretty confident in playing if need be. I would imagine Hicks is going to get his job back when he comes back. I think he is going to come back this week because he was kind of close to questionable, I think. But I almost made a play, like you said. He also, there was 2 or 3 plays where he was not in the right place, guys, for sure. And again, the special teams put this defense in a position where You're already shorthanded with Billings and Brisker. You can't be trying to make up for fumbles and things like this. And the penalties, man, the penalties again. We're back to it. Whether it be pre-snap or just boneheaded stuff. You know what? Daryl Johnson said something during that game that I don't know if I agree with. I don't know. What do you think, Kyle? He said,
Brennan, can we talk about Gerald Johnson after you make this
well,
point?
he said
What a,
pre-snap penalties are entirely on players. Now, the act itself is on the player, but the ability to make sure that a player doesn't repeat offend some of these pre-snap penalties is on a head coach. You've got to
yeah,
hold people accountable, whether no matter what it is no matter what the cost. If it's benching somebody like we have Tyreek Stevenson, you have to hold people accountable. These pre-snap and this Thomas Brown is responsible for this too, guys. I'm going to be honest. When I was watching on Sunday and I saw the pre-snap penalties, I thought to myself, Thomas Brown is also the guy, a piece of the solution. He needs to be addressing this as well because this is mostly on the offense. So, just another reflection of poor coaching, guys, on a team that's no matter how good they play, probably not going to win very many games for the rest of the season because of the coaches they have. They're going to coach. They're going to coach. This coaching staff is going to coach them into loss after loss after loss.
yeah,
So,
and
Kyle, I do want to get into while we're on coaching. I want to flip from Eberflus to Thomas Brown, but
well,
go ahead. I know, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, real quick. So obviously, with the penalties in that game, the Bears are now number one in the NFL at giving the opposing team a first down due to penalties, which is never, ever a good stat to have. I mean, that's you're just it's like 2 steps forward, 1 step back. You put your defense out there, they try their asses off, they try their hearts off, and then some stupid penalty gets. And I will say, Brennan, a couple of the Jalen Johnson penalties. First of all, one of them was very ticky-tacky. Second of all, he is going against the best receiver in the NFL, Justin Jefferson. And ultimately, Justin Jefferson had a terrible day. But here's the problem. I think the Bears focused so much on shutting down Justin Jefferson that Jordan Addison, TJ Hockenson, and Aaron Jones just ran around and had a field day. I mean, here, let's go over the numbers real quick, Brennan. Sam Darnold was 22 for 34 for 330 yards and 2 touchdowns. I mean, this wasn't the Bears team we watched for the first 10 weeks of the season. 22 34 for 330 yards and 2 touchdowns. I mean, that's almost like he was playing one of the worst pass defenses in the NFL. Aaron Jones, again, we talked about this before the season. Of course, he had to stay in the division. He goes off for 22 carries for 106 yards and a touchdown. He also had an additional 3 receptions for 23 yards. Jordan Addison, Brennan, had 8 receptions for 162 yards and a touchdown. 8 receptions for 162 yards and a touchdown. You know what that is, Brennan? That's 20.2 yards per clip. That's 20.2 yards per catch.
Yeah,
what did we talk about before this game? You have to eliminate big plays. You cannot allow big plays downfield. And where do the Bears get beat on? Big plays once again. TJ Hockenson goes off for 7 catches for 114 yards. I don't know about you, Brennan, but it felt like 92 of the 114 yards were on the last drive of the game or overtime. And then once we talked about Justin Jefferson has one of his worst games as a professional at 2 receptions for 27 yards, but one of those catches was also on the worst time it possibly could have been.
If you told me Justin Jefferson was going to have 27 yards receiving and Darnold was still going to throw for 330, whatever he threw for, I would tell you you're nuts. And I'll say this, man, this Tyreek Stevenson or Terrell Smith, whoever it is across from Jalen Johnson, he's going to get picked on, but as long as Jalen Johnson's over there doing his job, it doesn't work. If Jordan Addison's going for 162 yards or whatever it is you just said, it doesn't work. I don't know if the Bears need to start playing man like you said, Kyle, where it's just not zone, where Jalen Johnson is. But what do? You can't take Jalen Johnson off. I felt like Jalen Johnson played Justin Jefferson for majority of that game, and that's why Jalen Johnson allowed some big plays and he had some bad penalties. But he also, like you just said, man, the numbers Justin Jefferson had, Jalen Johnson was still the Jalen Johnson we're familiar with.
Yeah, well, did you see, Brennan? They were kind of, I don't know if you saw or not, but they were jawing back and forth with each other in the media through the media all week. But Jalen Johnson and Justin Jefferson, and I would say after the results of this game, that Jalen Johnson got the best of them. But ultimately, it doesn't matter. You think Justin Jefferson cares? They won the game. That's all he cares about. And either way, it doesn't matter. So basically, what Justin Jefferson could say back to Jalen Johnson is, "Yeah, you may have gotten the better of me this week, but while you were focused on me, Jordan Addison had 8 receptions for 162 yards and a touchdown." And Brennan,
Yeah, and
I don't know if you noticed or not, but Tyreek Stevenson was benched in that game. That's why
I'm going to be, well, yeah, this is the 3rd game consecutive he's been benched. And I'm going to say this too, man. This secondary is good. Stevenson's a good player. What's going on, Trex? Chicago Sports Podcast in the building, guys. Stevenson's a good player. Byard's a good player. Jalen Johnson's a good player. The problem, they're not getting pressure anymore. And it doesn't matter how good, like I said, man, it doesn't matter how good this secondary is. I don't even want to know what the average time to throw for Sam Darnold was, but it was, especially on third down, man, it seemed to be back-breaking. They just could not get to a quarterback who, guys, has played well this year, but is also known for turning the ball over even this season. And they couldn't get there. They couldn't get home.
Well, and Brendan, there
And
are
I love
people.
Brisker, man. Or not Brisker. I love Dexter. You know what? Dexter, to me, I'm disappointed that Dexter isn't going to be what I think he's going to finish with around 9 to 10 sacks. I don't think he's going to be the guy we want him to be, just a game wrecker. But I will say this: Jervon Dexter has basically taken the role of the nose tackle. He is the only player on this team left that can fill a gap and stop. He made some major plays in this game, guys, against the Vikings as a run stuffer, because this is what he had to do last year when Montez Sweat was figured out. It just seems to work out this way where Jervon Dexter ends up having to be their nose tackle because he's the best player remaining on the roster to play that position. And I think that's where he's going to be. And Walker had a good game, and Dexter had a good game in run defense, but they still just did not get pressure on Sam Darnold. Not enough to me. You
Well,
still need that other force.
And you know what? A lot of people will combat that and say that the Bears had 3 sacks once again. But you know what, guys? First of all, 2 of those sacks were coverage sacks. Sam Darnold was standing back there for like 8 seconds by the time they finally got to him. And second of all, if you look at the numbers, Sam Darnold was 22 for 34, so a great completion percentage. So obviously the Bears are not pressuring
Well, no,
him.
don't discredit sacks. They got 3 sacks. They got 3 sacks, guys. But outside of the 3 sacks,
Well, I mean,
when they got home, they weren't getting pressure a whole lot in this game.
yeah, that's what I'm saying. Ultimately, it doesn't matter because the Vikings went 6 for 13 on third down. I mean, if the Vikings are getting close to 50% third down, then obviously you're not applying much pressure.
And one of them was with a backup quarterback.
Yeah, and a lot of them were very long third downs. You're talking about 3rd and 8, 3rd and 9, 3rd and 10, 3rd and 11, 3rd and 12. I mean, that's what you want. That's the goal of the defense, is to get the opposing offense into 3rd and long, and the Bears still could not stop. It's almost like the Vikings were like, oh, it's 3rd and 12. Who cares? We're going to get it. Doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. We'll get it no matter what.
And we'll throw in the backup quarterback. Doesn't matter.
Yeah, I mean, but there was, I think Gerald Johnson himself said at one point, Sam Darnold could have had a cup of coffee back there with how long he had to stand in the pocket. And Brendan, real quick, this has nothing to do with the Chicago Bears, so I'm not going to spend all the time on it. But what a terrible, awful, just garbage broadcast by Daryl Johnston. That guy was just wrong time and time and time and time again. I don't know if you noticed or not, Brendan, but the play in which DJ Moore threw the ball to Rome Odunze in the end zone, and it should have been called pass interference. Daryl Johnston's response was, "Oh man, the defender did a really good job getting his head turned around." Like, Daryl, that was the definition of pass interference. He was there way too early. He barely got his head. If anything, his head got turned to the side. He didn't get his head turned away all the way.
No, I was going to say,
that was a terrible game by Daryl Johnston. No, I looked at Sean halfway through that game, and I'm like, this is before that play, Brandon. I looked at Sean and I said, "Can we please never get Daryl Johnson on a Bears broadcast?"
I do like Kugler, man. I like Kugler on the call. I think that's his name, Kugler. I thought he had a good call on the game, but yeah, Daryl Johnston is.
Well, I think was he with Adam Amin? Was that the other guy who was?
No, not for the Vikings game.
No, yeah,
I think his name's like Craig Kugler or something like that, man.
Yeah,
he's done a lot of Bears games, but let's move on, man, to Thomas Brown.
Well, real quick, man, before you move on, I just want to go over some things with Matt Eberflus real quick. So now after that loss, you guys, he is now 5-18 in 1-score games. That gives him a winning percentage of .217 in 1-score games. That is, by the way, guys, the lowest in the NFL. He is 2 for 9 now after losing that challenges this year, or in his career tenure with the Bears. And he's 2-12 now versus the NFC North.
He's
and real quick,
he's 0 for 4, I believe, on challenges this season.
Well, and real quick, Brennan, that challenge, after the game, he was asked about that challenge in his press conference, and his response was, "Well, it was a big play. It was an explosive play, so we had to challenge it." Like, no, you don't, Matt. If the play is clear and obviously out of bounds, it doesn't matter if it's a 2-yard play or a 60-yard play. You do not challenge it. You understand, everybody out there, every team in the NFL has a whole group of guys. They're paying a whole group of guys to sit up in the box, watch these plays, get the replays as quick as they can, and then send a message down to the coach on whether or not they should challenge it. Who are we paying? Who's up there? Who are we paying? I mean, it's becoming absurd. The Bears could do almost everything wrong that they possibly can. The second that play came into question, I looked at Sean and I'm like, he's going to throw a challenge flag. He shouldn't, but he's going to. He's going to throw a challenge flag, and sure enough, he did. He never fails to disappoint.
Yeah, Zach says here too, his big chunk play. Zach agrees, and then and that was his response. Basically, you throw a flag because of the gain of yards on that play, which makes no sense. There's just no logic behind that, guys. We can all agree this just was another example of poor head coaching by Matt Eberflus this game against the Vikings. So let's go to something a little bit brighter on the side of the Bears on Sunday. Man, Thomas Brown coaching this offense for his second straight week and against a really, really, really good run defense, guys. And what I felt like, Kyle, was Thomas Brown was very aware of this heading into this football game. So, how did you feel about Thomas Brown's game plan and his not only his game plan and approach, but the way that he adjusted throughout this game? Because as we all know, Brian Forrest was going to try to make it really hard on a rookie quarterback to succeed in this game.
Yeah, I mean, Vernon, you know for a fact, you know me. I am 100%. I'm like the conservative football fan. Run the ball and play defense. Run the ball and play defense. Don't put the ball in harm's way. But you know what? I'm going to give Thomas Brown and Caleb Williams and the Chicago Bears a pass on this one. First of all, you're playing one of the top 3 run defenses in the NFL. Second of all, you're playing one of the bottom 3 pass defenses in the NFL. So this game was always going to be a shootout for the Bears and the Vikings. And you know, I will still say, Brennan, that being said, 13 carries to DeAndre Swift, 2 carries to Roschon Johnson. 15 carries still is not enough for me for running backs. You have to run the ball more than 15 times for running backs. And I think 47 passes is probably too many dropbacks for Caleb.
If you're going to throw 47 passes, you're going to want to make them comfortable passes, right?
Well, not only that, man, but if you're going to complete, I mean, look at these numbers for the Chicago Bears. Keenan Allen, 9 receptions for 86 yards and a touchdown. DJ Moore, 7 receptions for 106 yards and a touchdown. Cole Kmet, 7 receptions for 64 yards. Rome Odunze, 5 receptions for 39 yards. And yeah, by the way, DJ Moore's 7 catches were off of 7 targets. So every time the Bears threw the ball, DJ Moore, he caught the ball.
Well,
so
and look at Kyle. Kyle, give us it's probably in front of you. Give us the target distribution. Because this is what amazed me.
I didn't write them down, but I know for a fact. So DJ Moore had 7 catches on 7 targets. I know for a fact Keenan Allen had 15. Keenan Allen had 15.
And I believe,
and I think Cole Kmet had 10, somewhere around 10 or 11.
No, I think Cole Kmet had more as well. I think he was close to the 15 mark.
Yeah, we can look this up right now. I mean, ultimately, with 47 pass attempts, yeah, there was a lot of targets to go around.
I do want to say this, guys. There's got to be a better passing receiver on this football team than DJ Moore. Because Rome Odunze had that play beat so early, which is the best thing you could ask for if your receiver is going to throw a ball to a receiver, right? If DJ Moore is going to throw a ball, Rome Odunze had them beat. You just put that ball on the right sideline in the end zone, maybe the back corner. Just try to throw it somewhere in the end zone in the back right corner. And he like drew Rome Odunze towards a defender. I don't know. I feel like DJ Moore, I thought that was a good play call by Thomas Brown. I feel like DJ Moore just executed that so poorly. And I'm going to be honest, the motion of DJ Moore throwing a ball was one of the ugliest things I've ever seen. I mean, am I wrong here, Kyle? Like, was this play not, you just chose the wrong guy? Like, there's got to be a previous quarterback. Yeah, someone on this roster had to have played. Like, didn't Roschon Johnson play some quarterback? Yeah, like, I feel like this play could have been done with Rome Odunze. So this is what I did when I was watching this game, man. I had my live stream on my phone, which is always a little more fast, a little quicker than your stream to your television. So I'm watching the game, and then I have the television on mute, where I can rewatch the play. And Rome just blew by he had double coverage, and he blew by both of them. And all he had to do was head towards the back corner, the right corner of the end zone. And DJ Moore threw a pass that turned him not only inside but short. He had to come almost back. It was a terrible pass. There was pass interference, I thought, Kyle, as well. But why there's got to be somebody on this roster who could throw that pass better than DJ Moore did.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately the play should have been successful because they should have called pass interference. So yeah, but you're right, Brendan. I mean, Roma Dunze clearly beat his man, and DJ Moore could not get the ball there. DJ Moore also kind of threw that in an awkward position. He almost looked like he was falling sideways when he threw it.
Yeah, right. It didn't. Right. It looked. It didn't. It just looked uncomfortable. It didn't look normal, man. I don't know. It didn't.
And there are guys in the NFL who can make those passes, but those are called quarterbacks. And real quick, Brendan, to your point, Keenan Allen had 15 targets, Cole Kmet had 10, Roma Dunze had 10, DeAndre Swift had 4, Roshan Johnson had 1.
Yeah,
so
right.
So, I mean, yeah, obviously when you're throwing the ball 47 times, the targets are going to be, everybody's going to have a lot of targets. But I mean, ultimately, the Bears passing game was working. So I'm not mad that the Bears didn't stray away from it. I just expect there to be more carries to running backs than 15 throughout the entire game.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, do you want to talk about this Thomas Brown comment?
Both. Let's see what Zach's saying.
Yeah. So Zach Lipsy says Thomas Brown did struggle a few times to get the play in before 15 seconds on the clock. I did see that, Zach. You could see the frustration in Thomas Brown's face when they showed his face after the Bears were called for a delay a game or pre-snap penalty. And then Zach also says Caleb struggles on the go route up the right sideline, missed a Dunze twice for big play and other missed touchdown. But I mean, not necessarily. I think Caleb Williams, I don't think it's necessarily certain routes that Caleb Williams struggles to throw. I think it's ultimately Caleb Williams just struggles at certain times during games because he's a rookie. I mean, Zach, if you go watch the go route by DeAndre Swift down the right sideline with Caleb Williams on the move, that's one of the best passes. That might be the best pass of his career so far.
Me and Zach watch. Zach, I love you. Thanks for staying active in the chat. Please keep feeding us things to talk about. But we disagreed on the play, the fourth down play where Caleb threw it to Keenan Allen. I thought Caleb threw it out of the reach of Keenan Allen. He thought Keenan Allen didn't have a first down anyways. I think you at least still got to just get the guy the ball to see if he can reach across the line. You know what I mean? And then the second play where I thought Caleb's rookie, Kyle, you've talked about this a lot over the course of the season, just unreasonably bad sacks. And that sack in overtime, what the hell? It's almost like he just kind of saw it happening and let it happen. Like, even if you throw that ball away and you take the whatever 10-yard, I don't know what it is, like take a chance, man, on the grounding penalty. Get rid of the damn ball. Like, I don't understand. He kind of bobbed and weaved, and it was Grenard who ended up almost in his lap, but he still had a second or two to react to Grenard before Grenard actually made contact with him, and he just held the damn ball again, man.
Yeah,
and
you know what?
That's something I got to stop seeing those things.
Yeah, and you're going to see rookie mistakes from a rookie quarterback. Every rookie in the NFL has them. And, there was a pass, Brennan, I think it was to the left hash. I don't remember, or left sideline. I don't remember if it was Roma Dunze or Keenan Allen, but it should have been a touch pass. He should have lobbed the pass, but he whipped it really, really, really hard, and there was just no chance for the receiver to come down with the ball. I mean, I don't know if you remember the play I'm talking about, but it was probably a 15, 20-yard pass, and Caleb Williams threw it so hard there was no chance for the receiver to catch up to it. And, he's going to correct that stuff. That stuff is all correctable, guys. You're talking about, it should have been a touch pass instead of a dart. Caleb Williams taking sacks, holding on to the ball too long. You can, as time goes on and the game slows down from a little bit, Caleb Williams will start to correct those mistakes. So
I also believe this play that I agree with you, Kyle. I believe this play Zach's talking about with the missed touchdown with Rome fading out to the right corner. I think Caleb was upset with Rome on that play, which is what I saw from the body language. I think Rome did something wrong on that play.
Well,
Caleb, I think that play was drawn for Caleb to take the snap and throw the ball almost immediately to the right corner of the end zone, and Rome kind of cut in before fading out instead of like just making a move on the DB and cutting out. You know what I mean? I think he was supposed to, because Rome's capable of this, guys. We know this. We know this for sure. Rome's capable of making that move at the line after the snap, making that move at the line of scrimmage. He's really good on press release. So Rome is not a guy who's going to get pushed at the line. He's not going to get bullied at the line. He has some of the best press release from a receiver I've probably ever seen in my life, and I truly mean this. This guy does not get bullied at the line by DBs. I think he was supposed to make a move, a quick in and out, and fade out to the corner. A fade route, like every fade route in the end zone, fade to the corner, and he kind of ran an actual route where he like cut inside, ran a few steps forward, and then cut out, and the ball was just too early for like the ball was where Rome, I believe, was supposed to be, not where Caleb. I don't think it was. I don't think Caleb put it in the wrong spot. I think the Rome was supposed to be there.
Well, and you know what? Roma Dunze is also a rookie, and he's also he should be excused for some mistakes as well. I mean, there's no player in the world goes from the collegiate level to the NFL level and plays perfect every single game. And as a matter of fact, we could talk about Roma Dunze real quick, you guys. He's now has 39 receptions for 518 yards. That means Roma Dunze in his rookie season, with 10 of those games being under Shane Waldron, is on pace for over 50 receptions and over 800 yards receiving. This guy is clearly going to be a number one or number two receiver in the NFL. It was a great pick for the Chicago Bears. He's everything they thought he
Yeah,
was.
I think it presents. I asked Dustin this on Thursday. I think it presents the question, man. Is he possibly better than Malik Neighbors and Marvin Harrison once he's the starting receiver on this team, the starting wide on the Keenan Allen's not a part of this offense. Is Rome Odunze better than DJ Moore and Marvin Harrison and or Malik Neighbors? Is he
Well, for me, it'd be
the
really
answer, man? I mean, is this guy a top 5 wide receiver? Because right now, like you said, Kyle, he's not only has he achieved the statistics he has, but while being a rookie, but he's playing less snaps than all of the other rookie wide receivers in the league right now. If Brian Thomas and Marvin Harrison and Malik Neighbors, discounting injury, have played more football than Rome Odunze per game, right?
Well, yeah, and you know what? It's for me, it's really hard to quantify the success of the three or compare the three, Brendan. Because first of all, I mean, how fair can we be to Malik Neighbors when he went from Daniel Jones to Tommy DeVito at quarterback? How fair can we be for Marvin Harrison Jr. when time and time again you're seeing these replays of Marvin Harrison Jr. wide open, but Kyler Murray just can't get him the ball? I mean, is that because Marvin Harrison's in the wrong spot? Is that because Kyler Murray can't see over the line because he's so small? And then with Rome Odunze, like you said, he's stuck behind Keenan Allen, probably going to end up being a Hall of Famer, and DJ Moore, who's probably also on pace to be a Hall of Fame wide receiver. So, I mean, I think you'd have to wait for all three of these guys to play at least a year and a half, probably 2 years before you could start comparing them. And secondly, Brennan, I mean, have you ever seen, as good as all three of these guys are, and I think they're all worthy of being top 10 picks in the NFL draft, but look at how different their skill sets are. I mean, these guys couldn't be any more opposite from each other. All three of them are top 10 picks, are going to be good receivers in the NFL, but they could not be more opposite from one another.
Well, what's funny to think, man, is, and I've thought this for a while, is Marvin Harrison's the biggest. Malik Neighbors is the most athletic by far. And Rome Odunze is still the best at contested catches. He
Well, and
doesn't
I'd say
have the
that Roman,
6'4" frame that Marvin Harrison has, and he doesn't have I mean, honestly, guys, vertical speed, everything that Malik Neighbors does is just off the charts. He doesn't have any of the measures that this guy has. And when it comes to a 50-50 ball against a good defender, Rome Dunze is the receiver you want trying to catch that ball. So it's
well, I mean,
awesome.
he's certainly not small. 6'3", 215 pounds is not a small guy in the NFL. And I think Rome Odunze is gonna be a very special player in the NFL for a long time. But I don't think he could take the top off a defense like Marvin Harrison can do, and I don't think he can. His yak ability is going to be as good as Malik Neighbors. But Rome Odunze Rome Odunze actually reminds me a lot of Alshon Jeffrey. A lot. He reminds me a lot. I know Alshon Jeffrey is a little bit bigger, but Rome Odunze's skill set is very similar. I mean, Bernard, do you remember that back shoulder pass that he caught where he made the adjustment and caught that pass? How many times did we see Alshon Jeffrey do that in the Chicago Bears? And how many times did we see Alshon Jeffrey go up for 50-50 balls in the NFL and come down with them? I mean, and you know what? Like I said, a lot of people are giving Marvin Harrison a lot of heat right now because his numbers he's not a 1,000-yard receiver with 10 touchdowns, but Marvin Harrison's going to be just fine. And at some point in the NFL, some point later on in his career, we're going to be talking about just how good Marvin Harrison Jr. is. I don't think we've seen the ceiling or the peak of any one of the three of these guys. When you talk about which one of these guys has the highest ceiling, I think that's just impossible to debate right now. But ultimately, all three of them are going to be good, and I'm not upset. I wouldn't have been upset with the Bears when they drafted either one of them. Neighbors, Harrison, Dunze. I think all of them are going to be key contributors to their teams for a long time.
Well, as long as we're talking about rookies, and we know that Rome Odunze is here to stay, guys, he's going to grow the next 4 years with our number 1 overall pick, Caleb Williams, our quarterback. Kyle, I thought this game, I mean, we say this a lot. I thought this game was just about as good as you can play for a rookie quarterback, honestly. I did mention the two mistakes. I thought the Keenan Allen fourth down throw was a little far, a little high, and I thought that the sack in overtime was something Caleb Williams was responsible for himself. But he continues to grow with Thomas Brown. We just talked about Thomas Brown, the impact he's had on this offense. We really didn't get to the numbers too much, guys, but Thomas Brown has impacted the time to throw for Caleb Williams. Actually, Kyle, before we get into Caleb Williams, while we're on Thomas Brown, let me ask you this. Is the offensive, because this is what you guys said to me a couple of weeks ago when I said Thomas Brown will start to develop this offense with Caleb Williams. As a play caller, he'll develop the same as Caleb Williams will develop as a player, right? And I believe that he's going to start to open up some more downfield passing. And you guys said as long as the offensive line, you said, but he might not be able to because the offensive line is going to be the same offensive line. Can Thomas Brown, is the offensive line better than we thought it was because Thomas Brown understands it's not as good as Ryan Poles and Matteberflus maybe projected it to be, or Shane Waldron even.
Well, Bernard,
you know what I'm saying? Can he make up for the inabilities of this offensive line by continuing to call quick passes for Caleb Williams? The offensive line has looked much better. They've had 6 sacks in 2 weeks. They had 9 sacks the week before that. So they've had fewer sacks in 2 weeks than they did the week prior since Thomas Brown took over. Is he going to make this offensive line continue to look like at least a quality offense at the middle of the pack, right?
Well, first of all, Bernard, I'd have to say that my direct response to that would be, which offensive line are we talking about? So
yeah, I know they had some injuries 2 weeks ago.
You guys, this year, this stat came out today. This year, the Bears have had 21 different combinations of offensive linemen. At this point in the season, the Bears have had 21 different combinations of offensive linemen. First of all, that is never good. You're never going to succeed. You're never going to find any unity or any cohesion when you're playing with different guys every single week. Second of all, guys, the offensive line that we've seen the most and that we expect to see, which would be Braxton Jones, Tevin Jenkins, Coleman Shelton, Matt Pryor, Darnell Wright. That offensive line, which is basically the Bears starting offensive line since Ryan Bates is nowhere to be found, has played only 38% of the snaps this season. And as bad as Shane Waldron was, I don't think you can necessarily blame Shane Waldron for that 9-sack game when they were playing without both Braxton Jones and Darnell Wright. Now, I'm not saying that he doesn't take any of the blame, but he certainly can't blame him for all 9 sacks. I mean,
well, Kyle, I do. I think his inability to even attempt to get the ball out of Caleb Williams' hand quicker, he never did.
Well, for sure, but
Shane Waldron coached as if he had an all-pro offensive line. He like I said, Caleb Williams was throwing the ball in most plays before receivers even turned around.
Yeah, but Brendan, one
of the biggest things Thomas Brown's done is put this offensive line in a position to succeed.
But there was also a sack in that Patriots game where Caleb Williams was sacked before he could even hand the ball off. I mean, Larry Borum got ran over.
They're still going to they still. I mean, like there's still plays where they forget about somebody entirely, and I don't know that that's Thomas Brown. So this is what I think, Kyle. I don't think that Thomas Brown can make these players better individually. Right? They are who they are. We have what we have. I think Thomas Brown can definitely make an impact on the unit.
No, well, he's done that.
Unit can play.
Seen him
I think if you're scheming, especially DeAndre Swift, guys, Roshan Johnson should be your up the middle carrier. We know this between the tackles. DeAndre Swift needs to get to the outside. And last week against Minnesota, he didn't do it so much, but last week he did this with Swift. He understands. And then the ability to get the ball out of Caleb Williams' hands quickly makes this offensive line much, much better. Much better. There's just no, I mean, they're going to perform better. These guys can give you a second and a half. You know what I mean? They just can't give you 3 seconds. And Thomas Brown's understanding of that, and Thomas Brown's understanding of Caleb Williams being a better passer if he's getting rid of the ball quickly to more comfortable routes, right? To guys who get on, like, you can easily scheme these receivers open quickly. Thomas Brown understood this. It's going to help Caleb Williams, going to help the offensive line. I think that he will make this offensive line grow week by week, no matter who's in there.
No, well, I mean, I will say, you guys, if you listen to the national media surrounding the Chicago Bears or the writers or analysts, or if you listen to this podcast, I will say that we do have a tendency to make the offensive line sound worse than they are. The Bears offensive line is not the worst offensive line in the NFL. But once again, It depends on which offensive line you're talking about. The current offensive line that played against the Minnesota Vikings on Sunday is not the worst offensive line in the NFL. The offensive line that played against the Patriots 2 weeks ago is probably the worst offensive line in the NFL. Now, that being said, there are 100% ways to work. First of all, like you could see here that Zach Lipsy brings up Tevin Jenkins is the best Pro Football Focus blocking grade versus Minnesota, Matty Bears, and O-line Braxton Jones was second. Well, those guys are both serviceable linemen. As a matter of fact, I'd say Tevin Jenkins, when healthy, is probably one of the best guards in the NFL.
And Kyle, and I'll say to Zach, in defense to my point, and I'm not trying to beat a dead horse here, but against the Packers, Tevin Jenkins left the game within I think it was 8 plays on offense, and Jake Curran, a player who was from the practice squad that week, played for the rest of the game, and they performed admirably. They performed well enough to give Caleb Williams time to have the game that I thought he played a really good game. He didn't throw any touchdowns, but I thought he played a good game. So I still think that Thomas Brown is making these players more effective, even when the best players available. Sorry, the best players aren't available, I should say.
Yeah, well, I mean, my major concern with this offensive line is not actually necessarily each one of the individual skill set. First of all, it's consistency. This offensive line is inconsistent. We've seen games where Coleman Shutt looks great. We've seen games where he looks terrible. We've seen games where Braxton Jones looks great. We've seen games where he looks terrible. And on top of that, Brennan, part of that inconsistency is health, right? I mean, Tevin Jenkins, you cannot go into the next season thinking that Tevin Jenkins is going to be your left guard. The guy is constantly hurt. He's hurt every other game.
Most importantly, you've seen games where the unit plays well and the unit plays poorly.
I mean, Bern, there's no doubt.
I think Thomas Brown will do a better job at putting the unit in a position to succeed as opposed to the individual players.
There's no doubt that Thomas Brown is trying to build a game plan to work around this offensive line. I mean, it's you don't even have to question it. It's statistically proven. I mean, weeks 11 and 12, the time between the snap and throw was 2.42 seconds average. It was actually Bern. You want to hear some really crazy shit? 2.42 seconds was the exact time between snap and throw against Green Bay. Guess what it was against Minnesota? Exactly the same. 2.42. So you know the odds of landing on 2.42 seconds in back-to-back games, which not only was the best of Caleb Williams' career, it was also one of the best in the NFL. 2.42 seconds from snap to throw is one of the best in the NFL. And we've seen that when Caleb Williams gets in that hurry up, that muddle huddle and that hurry up offense where he's throwing short routes and keeping the ball moving, that is obviously where he is most comfortable. And as we talked about, Thomas Brown notices that, he sees that, and he has adjusted the offensive accordingly. I mean, Thomas Brown came out and said, it's not about whether I'm comfortable playing offense for this team. It's about if Caleb Williams is comfortable, if Rome Odunze is comfortable, if DJ Moore is comfortable. I'm not the one on the field playing. They are. So what I have to do is take the skill set of my offensive players and create an offense that's most comfortable or it works best for them. And that's exactly what he's done. I mean, the Bears, it's not even, you can't even question it. The Bears in the last 2 weeks have looked the most competent they have in the last, before the month prior, if you look at their
statistics over the last 2 weeks versus the games prior, it's night and day. It really is.
Well,
Ryan, guys, Kyle, we got another guy in the chat. Ryan, thanks for joining us tonight. Ryan, appreciate you hanging out with us. Tevin is playing for a contract on another team.
I would agree with that.
I'll agree that Tevin Jenkins knows it's important that he remain on the field. But I will say this, Tevin Jenkins, when he is on the field, has always been a really good player.
Yeah,
so
he's one of the. I think he's one of the best guards in the NFL.
If the Bears don't sign Tevin Jenkins, he's going to get signed, guys.
Well, and you know what?
He's going to get signed by a team with the hopes that he plays a full year. And he's
you guys, you also can't count out the fact that because he's been so injured and so inconsistent and hasn't been able to. I mean, Bernard, how many times have we said this? The best ability is availability. Because he's been off the field so often, he might take it. I don't think he's going to be getting a ton of money. The Bears could still sign him to be their starter and then draft a guy to be a backup plan because he's going to get injured. That's still a possibility. I just don't like going into next season with him being the only option at left guard.
I would like to see Jake Curran play a little more too, man, because I thought
he
was a third round pick a year ago.
Judging off of Tevin Jenkins' injury past, I think at some point you're gonna see that. But Brendan, to make your point about Thomas Brown and him working around the deficiencies of this offensive line, weeks 1 through 10 under Shane Waldron, the Bears' average target distance was 8 yards downfield. Brendan, in week 11, it was 6.6 against the Green Bay Packers. And this past week, Brendan, week 12 against the Vikings, it was 7.2. So he's dropped it almost a yard lower against the Vikings and almost a yard and a half lower against the Green Bay Packers. So Brennan, he's doing exactly what you're saying. I mean, these routes are not going down deep. He wants to get the ball out of Caleb Williams as soon as he possibly can. And Brennan, didn't we talk about before the season or even early on in the season that's what every team with a rookie quarterback should be doing? Run the ball and throw short layups, right? Just run the ball and throw layups. Run the ball and throw layups. Run the ball and throw layups.
That's what these other organizations with starting rookie quarterbacks are doing.
Even Jalen Hurts, who's now in his 4th year in the NFL, he either does layups or 3-pointers. Do you ever see Jalen Hurts throw intermediate throws, like those mid-range jumpers? That guy either throws 50 yards downfield or he's jumping off to a running back.
Kyle, let's get to. So we kind of beat up Eberflus. We talked about Thomas-Brown, which, by the way, guys. Still very impressed by Thomas-Brown. I thought another loss as well. I thought he progressed as a play caller.
Can I say something?
Progressed as a coach.
Let me say something about Thomas-Brown before we move on, because I've heard a lot of people. I've seen a lot of this in the media, Instagram, TikTok, so on and so forth, Facebook. People keep saying, just make Thomas-Brown the head coach. You guys, that would be the worst case scenario for the Chicago Bears. First of all, I'm not saying that Thomas-Brown is not capable of being head coach in the NFL, but just to not interview anybody and decide that he's your head coach would be the Bears thing to do in this situation.
Well, Kyle, we're going to get into this later. Okay. When I give you my headlines and deadlines, we're going to talk about things. Trust me, I'm going to give you, because I'm going to ask you, and you're going to give me everything you feel about this stuff. We're going to get into
all right.
So
all right, let's move on to the man.
Zach
the
says,
myth,
what do you
the
guys think
legend,
about the rumors of trading for our next head coach? I'm not sure who that would be regarding. I haven't heard any of these. Have you heard of these rumors?
I mean, the only guy I could possibly
give us some names, because I don't know.
I mean, Zach, the only name I could think of there is a coach who is still a serviceable coach and people still respect him and like him and they think he's a good football coach, but he's stuck on a bad team where they're not going to be good for a long time. So they have the ability to get rid of him would be Kevin Stefanski. That would be the only coach I could think of. Maybe Brian Daboll, but I certainly wouldn't trade for him. But I mean, ultimately, Zach, if a team doesn't like a coach and they're willing to trade him, they're probably just going to fire him, right? I mean, at some point, they're probably just going to fire him. Kevin Stefanski would be the only one I could think of where they'd be like a coach who's just in a bad situation, but is still a good head football coach and still has that notoriety around the league. Kevin Stefanski, I would be fine with the Bears trading for Kevin Stefanski, but it depends on what you're giving up, right? I mean, I wouldn't give up a first-round pick for Kevin Stefanski. I mean, you could. There's plenty of coaches, and there's plenty of fish in the sea to choose from.
There's no head coach that I would give up a high pick for.
No, absolutely.
Going to be available in this.
Well, Brennan, another thing, Brennan, is
Shanahan and McVay. McVay's not going anywhere.
Shanahan's not going anywhere either. Neither those guys are going. If McVay has already said numerous times, guys, if he ever plans on leaving the Rams, it would only be to retire. Sean McVay has already said that. If he ever plans on leaving the Rams, it would only be to retire. Well, and Kyle Shanahan is not going anywhere. I think the Niners know that the best part about the San Francisco 49ers is Kyle Shanahan. The Niners need to start worrying about the holes in their roster. Stop worrying about the coach, because I am not convinced that Brock Purdy is the guy. I think he's Mr. Irrelevant. I think he's an average quarterback playing in a good system that makes him look better than average. I think that's Brennan. What do you think Brock Purdy would do if he was on the Chicago Bears?
With the pressure you need a mobile quarterback on the Bears. He probably wouldn't do very well. But Kyle, I want to talk about you. So Caleb Williams, 32 of 47, 340 yards, 2 touchdowns. How do you feel Caleb Williams did in this game against the Vikings?
Well, Brennan, for me personally, if you look at the intangibles and you look at the throws themselves, not just the statistical outcome or, he's always 32 of 47, he had 340. I don't care about the statistics. If you look at the throws themselves, I could make an argument that this was the best game of Caleb Williams' young career. I really honestly believe that. I think what I saw on Sunday from Caleb Williams, the throw to Cole Kmet, the throw to Keenan Allen, right over the Brennan, there was I don't remember. I think it was to Keenan Allen, right? Was the throw where it looked like it was intercepted. It looked like it was picked off, but it ended up, it went right between two defenders who crossed each other and ended up right in Keenan Allen. I think it was Keenan Allen's hands. And then you look at that throw down the sideline to DeAndre Swift. It kind of reminds me of the throw we saw in the preseason to Roma Dunze down the left sideline. You just look at the stuff that Caleb Williams is capable of doing, and that is God-given talent. The stuff that Caleb Williams is doing makes, if he can find a way to do that stuff consistently and get rid of the sacks and get rid of those missed passes, if he does what he did on Sunday for an entire game, those passes we just talked about, he is going to be one of the top 3 quarterbacks in the NFL. Because, Brennan, we've watched Jordan Love for a year and a half now. How many of those passes have you seen Jordan Love do complete? 10? Right? Those amazing passes where you're like, oh my God, how could he possibly have pulled that off? 10? We've seen 10 of those from Caleb in the last 2 games, in the last 2 weeks. That game to that pass to DeAndre Swift on the right sideline, that might be the best throw in the NFL this season. There's a very good. And Brendan, how about the one to Cole Kmet last week on the left hash? How about the one where it got right over the hands of those 2 defenders? How about that one last week? That's one of the best passes we've seen in the NFL this year. I mean, Caleb Williams is the thing I'm least worried about the Chicago Bears. And you guys, I'm going to go ahead and say this. Not only do I believe that Caleb Williams is the Bears franchise quarterback, and people can say that I'm just saying this because of recent memory against the Green Bay Packers and the Minnesota Vikings. But if Caleb Williams continues to make the throws he was making on Sunday against the Vikings, he is a generational talent. There is no doubt in my head he's a generational talent. And then Brennan, on top of that, do you remember that play where he's scrambling around the pocket trying to look for a way out, and he jumps over that defender laying on the ground? I mean, that's just not stuff.
No, that wasn't a defender, Kyle. He jumped over his own offensive line.
Fine, I don't care. I mean, that's just not stuff. What's going on, Atmas? Nice to see you, man. Appreciate you coming in.
What's up, Atmas?
That's just not stuff you see average players do in the NFL. Caleb Williams is absolutely going to be a remarkable player in this league for a long time. Vernon, we are now sitting here at 4-7, and we've lost 5 straight. And I have never felt better about the Chicago Bears. Ever in my life have I felt better about the Chicago Bears. Because if that's the guy who's going to be throwing the ball for the next 10, 15 years, the Bears are absolutely going to win a Super Bowl. No doubt about it. Absolutely 100% going to win a Super Bowl. No doubt about it. Not even a question in my mind. The Bears quarterback position is the position that I am least worried about of everything on the Bears. As a matter of fact, Vernon, is it fair to say that over the last 2 weeks, as good as the Bears have looked, their offense has looked, that the Bears every single week, a new hole just pops open? Like, now you got to start worrying about Tyreek Stevenson. You're already worried about Jaquan Brisker. You're worried about Andrew Billings. You're worried about Javon Dexter. You're worried about the other side of Montez Sweat. You're worried about the offensive line. I mean, every single week, a new hole pops up that the Bears have to fill. It's becoming a much, much, much tougher offseason for Ryan Poles. He's got to address 5, 6, 7, 8 more holes. We thought we were going to go into the season. We thought it was going to be, 2, 3 maybe? Now there's 5, 6, 7 more. Caleb Williams is the only one that I am not worried about in any way, shape, or form. And, to be honest with you, I don't really have any problems with Tyson Bagent as a backup either. I really don't. I think the Bears quarterback is the last thing we have to worry about. When's the last time you said that, Brent? Have you ever said that? Have you ever said that in the history of being a Bears fan? Have you ever said the position I'm least worried about is quarterback for the Chicago Bears? Have you ever said that in your life? No.
No, this is different, man. We clearly have. Well, first off, I want to say this. Ryan Poles found the right guy at quarterback, guys, which, I mean, like you said, Kyle, this is the first time we found the right guy at quarterback in this organization that never had before. We did, and for that, I would give Ryan Poles a shot at an open pool interview process for a head coach. But I think this, Caleb Williams, to me, was not only the right pick for this football team, he is still the best rookie of this class. And I know there's guys, Bo Nix has 16 touchdowns to Caleb's 11, and I know that Jaden Daniels has 2,600 yards to Caleb's 2,300. But I will say this, man. He's the smartest player. And I believe he could succeed in any system in the NFL. Caleb Williams is going to be successful. Where Jaden Daniels, it's very obvious, guys, that they have kind of limited his
they're catering to his skill set. They are 100% catering to his
and Bo Nix. I'm going to say this. I'm sorry if Bo Nix, who's a match made in heaven with Sean Payton, if he's placed on this Bears team and he's pressured 46% of his times, for 40% of the time, he's probably going to get killed.
He's Justin Fields. If he's pressured 40%, he's running the ball a lot. He's going to run the ball.
And not as successfully as Justin Fields, even close to it. Bo Nix is not going to succeed here in Chicago. I don't know that Jaden Daniels would either, guys. So I believe this. Caleb Williams is the most long-term successful quarterback in this draft, and I think he's intelligent. And, guys, we now have 190. Well, I'll wait on that, okay? So, yeah, I think Caleb, and this is one thing, Kyle, that I want to say, because we're so used to, at least with Justin Fields, maybe not so much with Trubisky, but Justin Fields, it was like our quarterback always played his worst football in the fourth quarter, or even the fourth quarter of this season. The last 4 games, Justin Fields always played his worst football. It felt like Right now, Caleb Williams in the fourth quarter has a 95% or 95 QB rating. He has 67% completion rating, 700 yards, 5 touchdowns, 1 interception. That's through the fourth quarter this entire season. This guy
Yeah.
is playing his best football. And let me tell you this. You want to hear his ratings from the other quarters right now? 84 in the first, 87 in the second, 67 in the third, 95 in the fourth.
No, Bernard, on top of that, he has a 76 completion percentage against blitz, and in the last 3 games, he's thrown over 300 yards against blitzes. He's a very tough quarterback to stop. I don't know if you guys noticed or not, but Brian Flores kind of gave up on blitzing the Bears every single play in about the second quarter. Once he realized Caleb Williams was going to keep throwing that ball over the defensive head, he was like, "All right, this is not the way to do this." He actually started dropping back in zone a lot, and I think that's what he wanted to do to begin with. I think he thought zone would kind of confuse Caleb Williams a lot, but it didn't. Caleb Williams, Brennan, we can go over the numbers right now here. Through 11 games this season, Caleb Williams has 11 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, 2,356 passing yards. That's 214 yards per game. He also has an additional 340 rushing yards. You guys, 11 touchdowns ties the rookie QB record for the Bears. There's still 6 games left in the season, and he just tied the rookie QB touchdown record. 2,356 yards, guys. That is the Bears rookie passing record. 2,356 yards is currently the Bears rookie passing record. And there is still 6 games left in the season. And here's the one I love the most, Brandon. Caleb Williams is on pace for 3,641 passing yards. You know what that means? That would put him about just short of 200 yards short of the Bears all-time QB passing record, Eric Kramer, with 3,838 yards in 1995. There is a chance that if Caleb Williams has some really, really big games going forward in this season, there's a chance Caleb Williams is going to set the all-time Bears QB passing record as a rookie. He's going to set the all-time Bears QB passing record as a rookie. That could happen. There's still a chance that could happen. And on top of that, guys, here's another statistic I love. I saw this today and I just loved it. This also says how inept the Bears are at drafting quarterbacks, Brandon. But right now, Caleb Williams is on pace to be the first Bears QB ever to throw for over 3,500 yards and rush for over 500 yards. He will be the first rookie quarterback ever to do that in the history of the Chicago Bears. And, Brandon, not the Bears rookie quarterback, he will be the first Bears quarterback ever in the history of the Chicago Bears to throw for over 3,500 yards and rush for over 500 yards. The Bears were established in 1926.
Well, Kyle, he was also the first quarterback this week in the NFL to throw for 300 plus yards, 2 touchdowns, and no interceptions, right? Didn't I read that correctly?
Yes, there's. I mean,
No. But let's go real quick.
The amount of
real quick,
records he's setting.
Real quick, Kyle.
Just
Aunt
insane.
Mass says, would you be surprised if the Bears keep Flus one more year? It would break the cycle of the head coach getting fired with 2-3 years rookie quarterback in the first year. Flus, or Aunt Mass, I'm going to say this. There is no way that they keep Matt Eberflus after this season, and this is the reason why. Because now the chatter has gone beyond Matt Eberflus, right? I heard today on 670 The Score and on ESPN 1000 talk about whether or not Ryan Poles should be fired. Ryan Poles now has to do what's best for his future, and there is no way Matt Eberflus is involved in that. Am I wrong about that, Kyle? I mean, there's no way.
No, Burden, and that goes to this point right here that Zach puts right here. Well, he says, I can't give Poles credit for picking Caleb. That's consensus #1 pick. He would have been fired if not taking him. Yeah, well, I mean, it's going to be the same thing this year. If Ryan Poles decides, if he goes into the office to McCaskey and Kevin Warren and says, I want to retain Matt Eberflus for the last 2 years of his contract, he will be fired. The McCaskies will be like, well, if you're going to stick your reputation on the line with Matt Eberflus, you're going with him. You guys are both fired. There's no doubt in my mind, you guys, the writing is on the wall. We're delaying the inevitable. Matt Eberflus is going to be fired. I don't know why the Bears do this thing where they refuse to fire coaches in season, but there is no doubt in my mind that when this season is over, Matt Eberflus is going to be fired. As a matter of fact, guys, you can start the countdown. I think it's 28 more press conferences or interviews we have to listen to from Matt Eberflus before he is fired. I think there's 28 left, and I don't know if I can handle another one, let alone 28 of them. But there's no doubt in my mind.
Let's dive into some of this chat.
What's that?
Let's dive into some of this chat.
All right. Well, so he's responding to Zach there. Zach says Poles also decided to sign an OT last year like Post also decided to sign OT last year, like McGlinchey, who rates much better than Wright and then passes on a blue chip defensive tackle and Jalen Carter. That would make the defense unstoppable. Well, first of all, Zach, Ryan Poles did want to sign Mike McGlinchey. He actually he gave a hell of a run to sign Mike McGlinchey. Mike McGlinchey just wanted.
Not signed. He said Brian Poles decided
Yeah,
to
well,
not sign.
yeah, he made a run at Mike McGlinchey. Mike McGlinchey just was not. It was too expensive. And you know what? For what Mike McGlinchey did get paid too much. And to your point about him being better than Darnell Wright, first of all, Darnell Wright is now in what, Brennan? This is his what, 20th game of his career? 20th, 22nd? He just played his 22nd. And on top of that, he's 21 years old. On top of that, he's 21 years old. He was one of the youngest players drafted. As a matter of fact, Brennan, was he the youngest player drafted last year?
I believe so.
I think he was the youngest player drafted in the 2023 draft. The jury is not out on Darnell Wright. First of all. Second of all, if you're talking about the difference between Mike McGlinchey and Darnell Wright, Zach, there's no way in hell that the difference between those two.
I agree with Zach though. Passing on Carter for Wright was
well. Here, let me finish the Darnell Wright thing real quick. Mike McGlinchey's also got what, 3 years, what, $80-something million. Darnell Wright is one of the cheapest players on the Bears. Zach, do you think the difference between Mike McGlinchey and Darnell Wright and their skill set and how they've played this year, do you think it's big enough to pay a guy almost $100 million more than the other guy? No, absolutely not. I don't think Darnell Wright's near the bottom of the NFL in tackles. I think Darnell Wright has plenty of room to improve, and he's going to. I also think that Sean has said this on this podcast numerous times now. I think with that Darnell Wright coming into the preseason with an injury, training camp with an injury, I think there's a chance he is still dealing with that back injury. I think that's 100% there's a chance that's happening. I'd like to see Darnell Wright play these first 3 years of his rookie contract. Obviously, we know it's a 4-year contract with a 5th-year option. If at the end of the 3 years of this contract, he has not become the top 10 tackle you drafted him to be, then we can start talking about Darnell Wright. But why does everybody else in the NFL get these long leashes and these years and years and years to get better, but Darnell Wright gets 20 games? I don't understand that. And of all the people you're only going to give 22 games to improve, you're giving it to the guy who was drafted at 20 years old? I mean, you guys, he was drafted as a kid. This guy was a kid. He couldn't even drink alcohol in a bar, and he's playing right tackle for the Chicago Bears. Let's wait on the jury of Brendan, can I get your opinion on the Jalen Carter situation real quick, and then I'll respond.
I think the Bears should have drafted Jalen Carter instead of Darnell Wright and taken a right tackle in the second round. I've been on record saying that for as long as time to me, but I do believe that Darnell Wright is a good player and is going to be a good player. I think that I'm going to be honest, Kyle. I hope this guy breaks the top 10. I think right now he's a top 15 right tackle in the NFL. I want him to be like he was drafted top 10. I want him to be like a top 5 right tackle in the NFL. I don't think he's there yet. And I think I said this before on the bare minimum. You weren't there, Kyle. I want to wait until Darnell Wright has some quality talent around him to dictate who he is as a player. I think if Darnell Wright has a right guard next to him that can even remotely do his job.
Wait, I mean, Vernon, you don't like Matt Pryor and Nate Davis?
No, Matt Pryor's not good, and Nate Davis
he's not
good,
and neither is Nate Davis. Vernon, that's a really good. I'm glad you brought that up because I think Darnell Wright's doing more work than he has to do, and he's a young player, and he's trying to save the whole right side of the line over there by himself.
I think he's too concerned about other things. I think Darnell Wright will be a good player when he's able to focus on the guy across from him.
Being a right tackle.
I think right now he's not doing that so much because the interior of this line is as bad as it is, guys. It's going to affect everybody. Even Braxton Jones would probably be a better player than he has been statistically, right? Like Kyle PFF grade, if the interior of this line wasn't constantly just garbage.
Interchanged. I mean, if you even get the same guards to play back-to-back games for the Bears, that would probably help them a little bit. But that's just not happening, man. It's the point now where you guys, at least we talked about in the past, Brennan, I brought this up to you. I don't know if you remember or not, but I was doing a bunch of research on Ryan Poles, and 3 different guys wrote articles about him, about he is one of the only GMs they've ever seen in the history of football rebuild a line from scratch from one year to another. From 2020 to 2021 with the Kansas City Chiefs, Ryan Poles rebuilt the entire offensive line. All 5 starters were new. All 5
maybe
starters.
That includes signing Tevin Jenkins and drafting a left tackle and a center. I don't know, because and a guard is something I think you can find. I really want to see Jake Curran play to see maybe he can be a guard on this team, and he was the 3rd round pick. But who knows? Kyle, we've talked about what went wrong against the Vikings and what went right against the Vikings, and Matt Eberflus, Thomas Brown, Caleb Williams. I do want to real quick, man. I want to something I've never done with you. I've done this with Dustin and I do want to do headlines or deadlines. Okay, so segment, guys, new segment: headlines or deadlines. We're going to try it for the first time on Monday night. All right. So I'm going to give you a topic. You pitch me whether or not this is something that could be printed on the news today, or it's just completely false. All right.
Like false or non-relevant?
Like I'm wrong.
Right.
Okay. So 100 Caleb Williams has currently thrown 195 pass attempts without an interception. The record was set last year. The rookie record was set last year by CJ Stroud with 211 pass attempts without an interception. Caleb Williams will break the rookie record for pass attempts without an interception this season.
Headline.
Okay, I agree with you. I think that he goes this entire next game against Detroit Thursday.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to say, Vernon. If you're gonna pick a team in the NFL, you were like, I don't know, man. This team might pick off Caleb Williams. Their secondary is pretty
Detroit.
good. It's not the Detroit Lions. I can tell you that, especially not in the dome. It's not the
No.
Detroit Lions in a dome. No, it is not.
And on a Thanksgiving, Caleb loves these games, man. Like the London game, I told you guys.
Well,
that.
Vernon,
Like,
and on top of
this
that,
Thanksgiving game, these environments, it's like if it's got a college feel to it. He kind of excels when it comes to these
Vernon,
games.
on top of that, correct me if I'm wrong, but was Caleb Williams not last interception, not the Hail Mary? Wasn't the last interception Caleb Williams threw him a Hail Mary?
It was the play they drew up beautifully.
Oh, it was the DJ Moore one, wasn't
where
it?
he shorted DJ Moore
Yeah.
against Jacksonville. Yeah. All right. So we both agree that is a deadline. All right. Or sorry, headline. He will break the rookie record. Sorry, that's a headline, guys. He will pass the 200 and pass the.
Well, what do you know? Just another
200
record
passes.
Caleb Williams is on pace to break, and everybody keeps saying that he's not
Yeah.
shouldn't be the quarterback for the Chicago Bears. This guy's just breaking records like it's going out of style.
All right, Kyle, the next one. David Kaplan said 2 weeks ago that Matt Eberflus would be terminated after the Thanksgiving game, predicting that the Bears lost against Green Bay, which they did, Minnesota, which they did, Detroit, which they will probably lose on Thursday. So, headline or deadline, Flus will be terminated if the Bears lose Thursday in Detroit.
Well, Brennan, as much as it pains me to say that, I'm going to say that's a deadline. The Bears have never done it. I only play, I've said this 1,000 times, Brennan. I play the odds. The Bears have never done that in the history of the franchise. I don't think they're going to start this year. I think that ultimately the Bears probably believe that firing Matt Eberflus in the middle of the season would probably actually be detrimental to Caleb Williams at this point. So I think Matt Eberflus is going to finish this season as the head coach of the Chicago Bears, 100%. I mean, Brennan, if you people could believe that Thomas Brown is the one making Caleb Williams look good and catering this offense around the skill set of Caleb Williams, what's going to happen to Thomas Brown if he has to focus on defense, special teams, offense? I mean, what does that do for Caleb Williams?
Well, let me ask you this then. While we're on this subject, Kyle, I'm seeing a lot of things.
Brennan, Brennan, we got a new
Shorty.
listener.
No, he comes Thursday nights.
Oh, I've never seen.
What's going on, Shorty? Yeah, we're twins. Yeah, we're twin brothers. Shorty, thanks for coming in. Thanks for joining us. We're doing our headlines, deadlines. All right. So first
what's
one
going on,
was,
man?
will Caleb break the rookie record for pass attempts without an interception? He's 16 away right now. Me and Kyle both said he will. David Kaplan of VSPN 1000 said that Eberflus, he predicted 2 weeks ago, Eberflus will be terminated after a loss on Thanksgiving to Detroit. That would mean 3 losses in a row against divisional opponents. Kyle says deadline. I say headline. I agree with David Kaplan that Eberflus will be fired after a loss to Detroit against Detroit, on Thanksgiving Thursday. And this is why. I keep reading. I sent you guys a picture today of potential head coach candidates for the Bears. Now, this wasn't by a Bears insider. This was just by a beat writer who thinks these are the people the Bears would be interested in. One of them, I think the third highest percent was Thomas Brown. Now, if you have any incline to interview Thomas Brown as a head coach. If this is a potential candidate for you in the future, if that's in your mind, if you're Ryan Poles and you're thinking this guy could go somewhere else and be Mike Tomlin, he could be my head coach, he could be successful for the next decade. Why would you not fire your head coach now and give Thomas Brown an actual audition as the head coach of this football team, Kyle?
Well, it's like I said previous. First of all, I've wanted to talk about Thomas Brown for a long time here, guys. First of all, I'm seeing a lot of stuff online that's a lot of these Bears fans are like, just hire Thomas Brown as the head coach, make him the head coach, and keep him there. Well, first of all, that would be the worst thing you could possibly do. We've talked about this time and time again. That would be the Bears' way to do things. And you want the Bears to start changing their ways, right? Change this culture. You want the Bears to go in this offseason and expand their horizons and interview as many coaching candidates as possible until they can find the guy who they believe is the smartest and who puts Caleb Williams in the best position to win football games. Now, as much as I like Thomas Brown, and I think he's done a great job with Caleb Williams over these 2 weeks, first of all, 2 weeks is a very small sample size. Second of all, Thomas Brown is still running Shane Waldron's playbook. Remember that, guys. This is not Thomas Brown's playbook. He's running Shane Waldron's playbook. He's just calling the plays that he think fit the scheme, Caleb Williams' comfortability, and the game situation best. That's what he's doing. But this is Shane Waldron's playbook. Shane Waldron wrote these plays that Thomas Brown is using. On top of that, Bernard, I just talked about this. Thomas Brown right now, it seems to be the best connection for Caleb Williams, right? This seems to be where in these last 2 weeks, Caleb Williams seems to be most comfortable under the coaching and play calling of Thomas Brown. So if you decide to fire Matt Eberflus right now and make Thomas Brown the interim head coach, Thomas Brown is going to have to focus on offense, defense, special teams, players, coaches, the whole 9 yards. He's going to have to focus on the entire team. He's going to have to take a step back out of the offensive play calling, or at least out of the offense, and focus on the entire team and be a leader of men to everybody involved in the organization. I don't think that's a good thing to do for Caleb Williams right now. But Brennan, there's nothing I want more than for Matt Eberflus to walk out of Halas Hall and never walk back in there again. Like I said early in the show, I think Matt Eberflus is inching his way to worst Bears coach all time. That's worse than Mark Trestman, worse than John Fox, and worse than Matt Nagy. I honestly believe that. But I do think that getting rid of Matt Eberflus right now could, in some way, shape, or form, hurt the development of Caleb Williams. And as I stated prior on the show a million times, I think the development of Caleb Williams and him progressing and him catching up to the NFL speed, letting things slow down for him, I think that is the most important thing to the Chicago Bears team right now, because ultimately he is the most important thing on the Chicago Bears. The quarterback is the most important position in American sports, and that's what you need to focus on right now. Caleb Williams, Caleb Williams, Caleb Williams.
Okay,
You don't want to break that bond between the two right now.
So we're split, though, on Eberflus being terminated after the Thanksgiving game. You say deadline, I say headline, he will be terminated. All right. Caleb Williams is 300 yards behind rookie Jaden Daniels, and he's 5 passing touchdowns behind rookie Bo Nix. That's the separation between Caleb Williams and the 2 rookie quarterbacks ahead of him. Obviously, guys, Drake May played less games, so his statistics aren't going to compare to these players. Caleb can still win Offensive Rookie of the Year, even for a losing team.
Yeah, that's the toughest one so far, for sure. I mean, Brennan, I'm going to go out there and say headline, and I think part of it is just due to the fact that, I mean, most of these awards, let's face it, Brennan, most of these awards, MVP, Rookie of the Year, Defense Player of the Year, these are popularity contests is what they are. And I still think that regardless of how the season's gone up to this point, I still believe that Caleb Williams has the most notoriety of any of the players you just mentioned. And I still think that most of the NFL believes that Caleb Williams is the highest ceiling of any of the players you just mentioned. Now, if Caleb Williams is going to become the Rookie of the Year, he's going to have an absolutely phenomenal finish to the season, because right now, all we've heard in the headlines, all you hear on ESPN, all you hear from all these sports writers and analysts is Jaden Daniels, Jaden Daniels, Jaden Daniels. I still think it could be done, Brennan, so I'm going to say headline, but it is a very, very tall task.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think it's tough. If Bo Nix and Jaden Daniels are both playing for winning teams when season end, if they're in the playoffs, it's going to be really hard for Caleb to win this award. But I agree with you, Kyle. If he comes out and throws, like, let's say 24 touchdowns, remains around 7 interceptions, and 3,500 yards, it'd be tough to not give him the award, obviously. Okay, so next one. After a blocked field goal to lose the game against Green Bay and 2 touchdowns against Minnesota allowed after special teams blunders with the muffed punt and the blocked field goal against Minnesota as well. Flus will fire Richard Hightower to scapegoat himself into one more week as the head coach of the Chicago Bears.
I'm going to say deadline, Vernon. The reason that being is because I think at this point, if Matt Eberflus loses any more coaches, I mean, would we say there was 8 fired in the last 15 months, right? Eight coaches have left this team in the last 15 months. It's just going to be more of a testament to how bad Matt Eberflus has been at hiring his staff, right? I mean, we've already lost Williams, and we don't even know what that was about. That was like, there was talks of child molestation and all this other stuff. It was, I don't know what happened there. I'm not going to speculate, but it wasn't.
Guys, we don't know. We don't
whatever
know.
It was.
We don't know what it is.
Or sorry, it was child porn, and we don't know what any of that stuff is. We don't. There were so many rumors. I'm not going to speculate on any of that stuff. But either way, we know it wasn't good, right? The FBI was at some point at the Bears facility. Secondly, he had to fire Luke Getsy at the end of the year, who has since been fired from the Las Vegas Raiders, which means obviously that guy's just not a very good coach, right? We obviously know that. And then lastly, he then fired Shane Waldron, who was only the offensive coordinator 10 games in the season, and Matt Eberflus just hired him. He just hired him. And on top of that, Brendan, we've now seen that thomasbrown seems to be more competent than Shane Waldron ever was, and he was on the staff the entire time. So he should have been promoted a long time ago. If you go ahead and fire another coach, Richard Hightower, so you've now struck out on all 3, defensive coordinator, special teams coordinator, and offensive coordinator. If you struck it on all 3, what does that say about you? I mean, ultimately, I don't think that would be a scapegoat. I think that would be Matt Eberflus putting his hands up there and saying, all right, guys, you got me. I suck at everything. I do nothing well. Nothing. I mean, he's now 15 coaches that's Matt Eberflus got here. 15 coaches have either left or been fired. 15 coaches. By the way, guys, that's an NFL record.
That's incredible. It's incredible insight. So he won't fire Richard Hightower. Like I said, though, I believe Flus will be fired after this week. Okay, 5 straight losses, Kyle. We started 4-2. We're now 4-7, and all but one team remains on our schedule that's not 500 or above. That is the Niners, actually, 5-6. The 49ers are the only team remaining on our schedule that are not above 500. The Bears will finish with only 4 wins.
Well, I'm going to say deadline, Vernon. The only reason I'm going to say that is because I'm just playing the odds here. So ultimately, at some point, I'm assuming one of these teams is probably going to deal with major injury right now. Like Vernon, you just said, I mean, the Green Bay Packers are a good football team, but they had no business beating the Niners as big as they did. That's because Brock Purdy was out. I think at some point the Bears are going to run into a team like maybe they play the Seahawks without Geno Smith. And ultimately, Vernon, I mean, one of these games, the ball's probably going to, the Bears have the blocked field goals and the muff punt. One of these games, I'm assuming some other team's going to have something like that where the ball just bounces the wrong way. It's just bad luck. And the Bears ultimately will end up pulling one of these games out. I think there's a very, very good chance the Bears beat the Seattle Seahawks because I don't know about you, Brennan. Sean and I watched that Seattle Seahawks Arizona Cardinals game on Sunday, and nothing about either of those teams impressed me in any way, shape, or form. I know people are going to come out and say, well, the Bears lost to the Arizona Cardinals pretty bad. Well, first of all, once again, the Bears are a different team on the road. Second of all, the Bears couldn't stop them from running the ball because Montez Sweat was out and Andrew Billings obviously got hurt in that game. I think this team has started to adjust to how they could stop the run. I just think, Bernard, at some point in this season, I hate to phrase it like this, but I think ultimately just playing the odds with how good Caleb Williams has looked, a win has to fall in their lap at some point, right? At some point, a win has to fall in their lap. Like the Bears are down with 30 seconds left in the game, they're down by 6 points, and they return a punt or a kickoff for a touchdown. Something like that has to happen for the Bears at some point. It has to. I mean, I just don't see in any way, shape, or form how nothing like that can happen for the Bears. It has to.
So you say deadline, they don't finish with 4 wins. I agree.
I don't think it's going to be much above 4 wins, but I do think they'll win.
I think they'll have 5 or 6. I do think they finish with less wins than they did last season. So I think we both kind of agree there. So I think we kind of agreed over the deadlines, Kyle. That's all that I got. But I do want to ask you this moving forward. Okay, so I think the most important thing regarding the Bears' future is 2 things. Sorry, I'll say the most important things. two things is what's best for Caleb Williams, and can Ryan Poles identify and acquire that? Can Ryan Poles identify and acquire that? So, Kyle, do you believe Ryan Poles, after bringing Caleb Williams here, which was probably the biggest thing I mean, we could say, obviously he's made some pretty bad moves. Keeping Matt Eberflus is detrimental to his tenure and how we're going to analyze him as a GM. But he did get Caleb Williams here. So do you believe, well, first off, Kyle, what's most important for Caleb Williams? And second, is Ryan Poles the person who can acquire that?
I mean, Bert, what's most important for Caleb Williams is keeping him upright and healthy. That's what's most important for Caleb Williams. Now, obviously, you're also worried about his development, and we've seen that that's gotten better since Thomas Brown's taken over as the offensive coordinator. But eventually, the Bears have to adjust this offensive line. You cannot continue to be like, oh, well, if we just get the ball out of his hands quickly and we sign these receivers, eventually the Bears have to adjust the offensive line. Bert, and go look at the powerhouse teams in the NFL right now. Philadelphia Eagles, Kansas City Chiefs, Detroit Lions.
You're talking about after this season and the
yes, at the end of the season. Yes, Brendan. Right now, I don't think there's besides doing exactly what you've been doing for the last 2 weeks. So keep that bond between the Thomas Brown and Caleb Williams. Keep that bond getting stronger and stronger every week, and continue to see to kind of build this team around the deficiencies of the offensive line. That's the only thing you can do for the rest of the season, because there's no offensive lineman out there you can go sign free agency who's going to make this team better. It's just
I agree with you. So yeah, build an offensive line is the most important thing,
and get a coach here that is a good leader of men, a coach who can the team respects and depends on, and a team who has a coach who has a winning culture, a coach who can win
which
these
is more
games.
important, Kyle. Ryan Poles' ability to draft an offensive line, or Ryan Poles' ability to hire a head coach?
Oh, head coach by far is more important than the offensive line, Brian. We've talked about it. This offensive line is probably actually, if you get those 5 guys who you consider to be your starting offensive line, if they can stay healthy, this offensive line is probably where would you rank them, Brian? 17, 18, 19, probably, if you looked at the metrics.
Yeah, bottom teens, yeah.
Yeah, the head coach is in charge of everything. I mean, the guy's in charge of everything: the offense, defense, special teams, the players, the coaches, even when it comes down to certain personnel, like the guys we just talked about up in the box, who he's calling up to and saying, hey, should I challenge this or not? Those guys, he is in charge of hiring all of those guys. He's also in charge of putting Caleb Williams in the best position to continue to grow and get better. And Caleb Williams is the most important part of this team. The head coach, Ryan Poles, has to absolutely nail this. He has to smash it out of the park, man. This head coach has to be the Bears head coach for the next 10 years. You cannot do this thing where you go hire a head coach, you decide he sucks, and you fire him 2 years from now. You keep doing that to Caleb Williams, you keep making him learn an offensive system every single 2 years.
Oh,
he's going to leave. Eventually what he's going to do is he's not going to sign an extension that the Bears offer him, and he's going to wait till he hits free agency and get the hell out of here. And I don't blame him. Here's my question to you, Brendan. Do you think...
Well, hold on, man. So you said the head coach is more important than the offensive line, but you've clearly stated that these two things, head coach and offensive line, are the most important things for Caleb Williams' future.
Yes, they must be improved.
Do you think that Ryan Poles is the man who can acquire these things for Caleb Williams?
Oh, man, I'll say this. I think that remains to be seen. And I think it's almost impossible to make that determination. But if you're asking me, in my opinion, do I think he's the best man for the job? No. Do I think he's capable of making that happen, addressing the offensive line and hiring a good head coach this offseason? Yes, I do. I really do. And I know people don't like to hear me say that, because a lot of people hate Ryan Poles, I shouldn't say hate him, but they don't want him anymore, and they don't think he's good enough to do this job. I think ultimately, if you give Ryan Poles the freedom to choose from any coach that he wants in the entire NFL, and Brendan, we both know that Ryan Poles is an offensive GM, right? He was an offensive lineman in the NFL. He drafted Caleb Williams number 1 overall. He passed up on Jalen Carter to draft Darnell Wright. Ultimately, Ryan Poles I believe he thinks offense is more important than defense. And what he made sure was included in that Carolina Panthers trade? DJ Moore. He wanted the number 1 receiver. And then he drafted Rome Odunze at number 9.
Oh yeah, and then I was just going to say, more importantly, after he acquired Keenan Allen. Was that after or before the draft? I think
that was after the draft.
Was it after?
Yeah, I think Keenan Allen wasn't. No, maybe you're right. Maybe
No, it was before.
Yeah,
So after he
it
had
was before.
so he had DJ Moore, who's gotten an extension. It hadn't happened yet, but he traded for Keenan Allen, and then he still drafted Roman Dunze. So you're right, Kyle, and they extended Cole Kmet. So you're right. He is probably thinking more offensively when it comes to the future of this football team and how it's built, but he didn't do a very good job on the offensive line. So
No,
I
so
mean,
I think Burnham, all we can expect for all we can ask from Ryan Poles is that he's learned from his failures. So first of all, he decided to retain a defensive minded head coach, and now you're shuffling through all these offensive coordinators. I think ultimately Ryan Poles is going to be like, you know what, Caleb Williams is the most important part of this team. Ultimately, the future of the franchise depends on what he does. I'm going to go hire a guy who makes him as comfortable as possible. You want to see like that Kyle Shanahan, that Sean McVay, that guy who's capable of creating open space and open receivers to make it as easy on the quarterback as possible. And if you make this offense easy to run, and you get put in a position where he almost can't fail, and then you put on top of it that he can make it look even better than ultimately this system is, because I think Caleb Williams is capable of being a top 3 quarterback in the NFL for the next 10 years. There's no way the Bears don't win a Super Bowl. You just have to make the right hired head coach. You have to. You absolutely have to. That's imperative. The offensive line you can tweak with here and there. You can add a guy in free agency. You can get a couple guys in the draft. Ultimately, you don't know what's going to happen there. But the head coach, we know for a fact, Brandon, right? Matt Eberflus is going to get fired, and he's going to have to hire a new head coach. We don't know how he's going to rebuild the offensive line. We don't know if it's going to be free agency. It's going to be in the draft, combination of the two. But we know for a fact at some point, Ryan Poles is going to fire Matt Eberflus and hire a new head coach. That is the most important thing that's going to happen in the Bears offseason. No question about it. Not even close.
so you do trust that Ryan Poles should be the person that makes that decision?
I don't trust him. I think that at this point, with the team that Ryan Poles has put together, which you saw on Sunday, Brennan, is a competitive football team. They're capable of winning games. They're capable of doing it. I think that firing Ryan Poles and bringing a new GM in here could be just as detrimental. You could make an argument that is just as detrimental to this team as him hiring a new coach, the coach not working out. They have to fire the GM and the coach and start all over from scratch. I think it could be just as detrimental to get rid of Ryan Poles right now, because he has drafted these players to fit certain schemes. So you now need to have, like, the Bears are going to Brennan, do you believe that if the Bears hire a new coach and he brings in a new defensive coordinator, do you think the Bears are going to stay in a 4-3?
I don't know. I think they should.
I mean, the players they have here are Tremaine Edmonds, TJ Edwards, Javon Dexter.
I think their secondary. I think their secondary is good enough that you probably should remain in.
Yeah, 4-3. I mean, I would say you're going to want to bring a defensive coordinator who runs a 4-3. As a matter of fact, I think it's going to be somebody who, I think, and Brennan, on top of that, this is something I want to say about the coaching search real quick. Brennan, there's going to be 8 teams that need new head coaches this season, right? At the end of the season, right? Probably 6 to 8, somewhere in there. Name me another team, unless the Bengals coach gets fired, the Cincinnati Bengals or Taylor gets fired. Name me another team besides the Bengals that's more desirable to a head coach who wants to have sustained success for years to come than the Chicago Bears. Name one. Name another team that's more desirable for a job that's more desirable than the head coach for the Chicago Bears. There is none. Caleb Williams, DJ Moore, Roma Dunze, DeAndre Swift, Montez Sweat, Jaquan Brisker, Kyler Gordon, Jalen Johnson, Kevin Byard's going to be here next year. Andrew Billings is going to be back. Name another job that's more desirable than the Chicago Bears.
The organization, though.
I mean, it doesn't matter. Ultimately, what you're looking for,
you're
looking for sustained success.
I would say that the Jets' job is close to. You got Aaron Rodgers, Devontae Adams.
Well, Aaron Rodgers. Remember, Aaron Rodgers is a free agent. This is the last year of his contract, so he's a free agent at the end of this year. So you don't know what they're going to do at quarterback in New York. That's a huge question.
Yeah, maybe he's the Vikings quarterback.
Well, Brennan, if you were a head coach and you're taking the New York Jets job, wouldn't you want your own quarterback? Wouldn't you be like, hey, I don't want Aaron Rodgers. I want the quarterback who I want to be here for the next 10 years with me. That's what I want. I'm going to go get my quarterback. I would. I mean, Caleb Williams is here no matter what. You know he's going to be here no matter what. And I'll tell you what, Brennan, I'll tell you this. The more you continue to see Caleb Williams do shit like what he just did on Sunday, that pass to DeAndre Swift, that pass to Keenan Allen between those two defenders, that pass to Cole Kmet over the outstretched fingertips of the linebacker, the more of these coaches, potential head coaches looking for jobs, are going to be like, I want that guy. I want to be the coach of that guy. That's the guy I want to coach for the next 10 years because
I
I
have
think
no
that guy
doubt.
is special.
I have no doubt that the roster is appealing. It's the organization itself that
Yeah. Yeah.
concerns me for why a person would take this job.
Yeah. You know what's the third most important thing for the Bears this offseason is for the McCaskies to go up to the new coach, Kevin Warren and Ryan Poles, and go, you know what, guys, we're out. We're done. We're not even going to be in the building here anymore.
Well, no, you do
It's
that.
all up
Yeah,
to you
you do
guys.
that. You do that to Ryan Poles now. It's your thing. We're out. You figure it out.
Yeah,
You
the
hire your
coaches,
guys.
the
He
coaches
hires his
ultimately
guys.
up to you. We're not going to have
Yeah.
any input. There's going to be no Bill Poley in here to tell you to hire. Ryan, we trust you. You're the GM. Go hire a coach who you think fits this team best. That's what you have to do. You have to do that. You cannot, the McCaskies cannot have their little fingerprints all over this team. It's getting old. We're starting to become the laughing stock of the league where these executives and these writers and analysts are starting to say, man, nobody wants to coach for the Bears because it's just such a dysfunctional organization. You have to change that first. You got to cut that culture out. And if that means the McCaskies taking their hands off everything, then so be it.
Kyle, you know what I would truthfully believe gives Ryan Poles even more an opportunity to be the guy who decides who the next head coach is? If he fires Matt Eberflus after a loss to the Lions on Thanksgiving. If he makes that decision, if he fires Matt Eberflus, this organization, well, at least as a fan, I don't know how George reacts to this. As a fan, I will think to myself, this guy is different. He's willing to do more to win and to help his team succeed. And he should be the person who decides who the next head coach is.
Well, Vernon, let me ask you this.
I believe the termination of Matt Eberflus in season would speak volumes for Ryan Poles' dedication to success.
Well, Vernon, let me ask you this. If he say that the Bears go to Detroit on Thanksgiving and they get beat 42-8, right? Whatever. Pick a score. It doesn't matter because we know for a fact the Lions are going to run the ball down the Bears' throat and they're going to have like 200 yards rushing and they're going to kill us. If the next day you wake up Friday morning and Matt Eberflus is fired, who would you want them to announce as the interim head coach? You think it should be Thomas Brown?
No, I think it should. I would say Washington.
Me too. I agree. I think that right now with what Caleb Williams and Thomas Brown got going with each other, how good he's looked the last two games, the fact that Thomas Brown has kind of got him, I guess you'd say, back on track. And he's starting to see him develop and start to make better plays and smarter decisions. Wouldn't you want to see that continue? If you take Thomas Brown out of that position, that offensive coordinator position,
and Eric
Washington, move him to head coach.
Eric Washington's been doing this for a lot longer.
Yeah,
I agree. He's been around a lot of head coaches, and he's been involved in a lot of game situations. You know what I mean? Eric Washington's been doing this for 30 years, man. I mean, like this guy knows the game of football. I mean, he knows the sideline. He knows who to be in charge of, a leader in charge of men. I think that for sure. Every interview this guy's ever done, it captivates me. I think he grabs your attention. He's a person. He's no bullshit kind of guy. I think that Brown, like you said, Kyle, should remain focused on calling offensive plays. I think Eric Washington probably has somebody within his staff that he trusts to oversee as a play caller, and he runs the team. I don't know that Washington would remain the defensive play caller and be the head coach.
Well, he's never called plays. Eric Washington has never called plays for the Chicago Bears. To this point in the season, Matt Eberflus is still calling plays for the defense. And that's something that we talked about on this podcast. We wanted to see him give up eons ago because we don't think he's capable of calling the defense and focusing on the entirety of the team at the same time. And Matt Eberflus is so damn stubborn, he refused to do so. And ultimately, that might be the thing that got him fired. But yeah, Brennan, like you said, Eric Washington, if he moves up to interim head coach, he'd still be doing the same thing he was doing. He was never calling plays to begin with on defense. So ultimately, he'd be doing the same thing. He would just be the guy who's starting to hold people accountable and make sure they're getting things right in practice. And I think I guarantee you for a fact, I know nothing about Eric Washington, but I could promise you this. Eric Washington is better at holding people accountable, better at being a leader of men, and better at perfecting plays in practice than Matt Eberflus, because by all accounts, what we know about Matt Eberflus is he's not good at any of it. So ultimately, if the Bears do decide to fire Matt Eberflus in season, I agree with you. And Mr. Shorty here also says, I agree, Washington, let Brown continue to be the coach of the QB. I agree with that. I think right now, with the way things are going for Caleb Williams, we've talked about this before, that's the most important thing to this team. It's the development of Caleb Williams. The way things have been going in recent weeks against two division rivals, it looks like Caleb Williams is going to be one of those guys who shows up when it matters most against divisional opponents. Let him keep doing what he's doing. Don't mess with that. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. That's my philosophy. If it isn't broke, don't fix it. But I'll tell you right now, Brandon, going into this season, I was one of the people who kept saying the Bears are not going to be 17-0, that he's not going to throw 5,000 yards. But I will say this. There's a lot more to fix on this team than I thought going into this season. And that's going to be a very, very, very interesting offseason for Ryan Poles.
Kyle, let me ask you this. Would you feel more confident in Ryan Poles being the person who dictates who that head coach is that you talked about you want here for the next decade, imploring success? Would you feel more comfortable with Ryan Poles being the dictator of that if he's willing to fire Matt Eberflus if they lose this Thursday because he's willing to say, I fucked up, right?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, Brennan, 100%, because you know what? I would have been more comfortable with Ryan Poles making the next coaching decision if he would have done that shit 3 weeks ago. I mean, Matt Eberflus should have been fired after the Patriots game. Brennan, you can't get your ass kicked by the worst team in the NFL.
But Kyle, this organization is influential over their head coaches, their GMs. They influence. The Bears organization hasn't fired a head coach in season because that's got a lot to do with the people in charge of it, like George McCaskey. If Ryan Poles said, F you, I don't care. I made the wrong decision. I'm getting rid of this guy now. No matter what George and Kevin, no matter what the expectation is of me over the handling of this situation with my head coach. We have now lost 3 games in a row to divisional opponents and now 6 games in a row after a 4-2 start. It's time to make a change to prove to not only the fan base, but my team, my players specifically, that I'm willing to do whatever it takes to win more football games. Because Kyle, the players aren't thinking like we are as fans, because we want to lose every game moving forward, right? We want to be like the 8th pick in the draft again. We want to be a top 10 pick again. But the reality is the players want to win as many games as possible. And the GM's saying this coach isn't putting you in position to do that. He's actually coaching you into losses. I have to see if somebody else on this roster, on my coaching roster, can hold this team accountable and be the man that I expect a leader to be. Like, because 53 violent men is a hard thing to maintain. It's a hard thing to manage. It's a hard thing to be a coach of. Is there somebody on this roster like Eric Washington that Ryan Poles believes might give this team a better chance of winning because he'll hold this team to a standard where there isn't these mistakes, these blunders?
Well, Brennan, do you think
And then most importantly, Kyle, this lack of confidence. This lack of confidence in his players.
Is it fair to say
confidence in his players?
Is it fair to say that no matter who he picks to be the interim head coach, it can't get any worse? Wouldn't you say that's fair to say? Could this get worse?
Yeah, I don't see what there is to lose at this juncture. And when I say lose, I'm not. It's not a pun here. I mean lose. Literally, I don't see how. Like, can you? I even had a person say to me, "You could lose worse. Like you might not be competitive because the Bears have been competitive. Who cares?
Well, Brennan, if
you're not winning, who cares if you're competing?"
To answer your question, if Ryan Poles, if we found out through the media that after losing the Detroit Lions on Thanksgiving, Friday morning, Ryan Poles called Matt Eberflus in his office and fired him, and then texted George McCaskey, "Hey, I know you would stop me from doing so, so I fired him without you in the building. Just so you know, Matt Eberflus is no longer a coach for the Chicago Bears." My respect for Ryan Poles would absolutely go through the roof. If he was like, "Well, I know if McCaskey's involved, I can't fire him, so I'm just going to do it and say, F you, McCaskey's. I'm firing him now. You're going to find out through a text message, and I've picked an interim head coach." My respect for Ryan Poles would be, because you're right, Brennan. I've said this before. I've been very vocal about this. Firing Matt Eberflus now sends a message to the team that, hey, we're not messing around. We do not accept mediocrity. We are here to win a championship. Anybody who doesn't want to be a part of that, Tyreek Stevenson, any of these guys who don't want to be a part of that, these guys who don't have their head up their ass, you're going to go with them.
Nate Davis, who's gone.
Yeah, Nate Davis, who they've cut. Ryan Poles already came out and said, "All right, guys, I screwed up. This guy sucks. He's gone."
Tyreek Stevenson's been benched for 3 games consecutively. I mean,
I think Tyreek Stevenson's going to be traded at some point.
Kyle, I don't see how. Matt Eberflus makes it through this year. I don't. If he loses in bad fashion, and let's be honest,
Well,
God,
Vernon,
this Detroit offense
wouldn't that
is
have been the
probably
Patriots
gonna.
game? Don't you think that would have been the Patriots game? They scored 3 points against the Patriots. Against the
This Detroit,
Patriots.
this Detroit offense is probably gonna be. It's probably gonna be over at halftime. It's
No,
probably gonna be like
Vernon,
24-6 at halftime.
you know what scares the hell out of me? You know what scares the hell out of me? Watch, because Caleb Williams is so good and he's getting better every week. Watch the Bears come make this game. Watch the Bears lose this game by like 6 points. And the Bears are like, well, the team's improving
But
overall.
I don't see how in a 6-game losing skid with 3 consecutive losses against your opponents, your divisional opponents, 2 of them at home, I don't see how a GM's hand is enforced. Kyle, I guess what I want to ask is is it in Ryan Pohl's best interest to keep his job with Kevin Warren if he fires Matt Eberflus after a loss to Detroit?
I mean, I would say yes, Burton. The best move for him to make right now is to fire Matt Eberflus. But at the same time, like if people talk about the Bears all the time, they've never fired a coach in season. So ultimately, you would think that that's McCaskey's making that decision, right? So maybe Ryan.
Yeah, but they never fired an offensive coordinator either.
Maybe Ryan Poles wants to fire Matt Eberflus, and the McCaskies are telling him no, not right now. I don't know. I have no idea. I can't imagine that Ryan Poles is happy about the results he's getting. Happy about it. He put this team, Brennan, like you said, his reputation is just as attached to this team as Matt Eberflus's. I mean, right now people are calling for Ryan Pohl's job just like they are Matt Eberflus. You think at some point he'd like to distance himself from that guy as much as he possibly can.
Kyle,
so why hasn't he been fired already?
Sorry, guys. Kyle, the chat agrees. Shorty and Amas agree that Eric Washington would probably make for a more suitable head coaching candidate than interim head coaching candidate than Thomasbrown. Let him keep doing what he's doing. So I don't know, man. Like David Kaplan projected 2 weeks ago that Matt Eberflus loses to this Detroit team and he is terminated. And I think I'm with Cap. I think if they lose in bad fashion to this Detroit team, I think if they're in Detroit, guys. If Detroit just hammers this Bears team, because we're not good on the road, as is, we're probably playing the best team in the NFL, top 2 at least. So,
well, Brennan, if the Bears fire Matt Eberflus on Friday, I'm going to be at River Street Tavern Friday night, guys. I'll be bartending there in East Dundee. Everybody, come on up.
Give a shout out. Everybody,
yeah, you guys. River Street Tavern over 102 North River Street over in East Dundee. It's it's our first sponsor, guys. Great people running the restaurant there. It's Tina Anton and Lauren Ratner, good friends of mine. It's a great place to eat, drink. It's a great place to hang out, watch sports. If Matt Eberflus gets fired on Friday, everybody come up Friday night. I'll buy a round of shots. Let's get the party started, because that would be the greatest news that you could possibly imagine as a Chicago Bears fan. Is Matt Eberflus is no longer the head coach of this football team. I think that's going to happen?
Think about what you're saying, like that. The way that the fan base, the general consensus amongst the fan base is going to be what you're saying right now. So, how good does Poles look if you fire Matt Eberflus after following a loss on Friday?
I mean,
Poles looks like, you know what he looks like to a Bears fan base? Like he's different, right? He's willing to do more. He's different. It's not about tradition. He's talking about, I want to forget the Bears of old and I want to move forward. So if he fires a head coach midseason, he is proving to you guys, that's this fan base, to us, this is different. We're doing something different now. We're not doing. Who cares about tradition? I don't care about tradition. I don't care what the Bears did with their head coaches over the course of their existence. This is different. We want to win, and that's what I'm here to do. Right?
Yeah, I agree with Mr. Shorty. He says it is time to fire Eberflus during the season as loser ass ways after this next Lions humiliation. And then Ant Mass responds to that by saying this Lions trap game, overconfident, going to think they're throwing up an easy 50 on us. I mean, I do think ultimately Ant Mass, I love the optimism. I do think that the Lions are going to end up beating the Bears.
Oh, they're going to destroy the Bears.
But Brennan, the one thing I will say about Ryan,
the Bears. I think Caleb's going to play a big game because Thanksgiving game's kind of like the
I'm taking the Caleb over on passing yards. I can tell you that shit right now for a fact. I don't care what it is. I'm taking the over on passing yards, Caleb, no doubt about it, because the Lions are really good at stopping the run, and it's come down to the point now, Brennan, where I mean the Bears putting the ball in Caleb Williams' hands gives us the best chance to win. Now I don't want to see him drop back 50 times. Like I said, I'd like to see more running back carries than 15.
Well, you
But
just want
also,
to see the guys survive.
yeah,
Yeah.
ultimately, Caleb Williams has to carry this team if they're going to win games. But Bernard, I will say this in response to the Ryan Poles situation. If Ryan Poles fires Matt Eberflus, will that send the right message to the team? Yes, absolutely. And to the fan base, yes, absolutely. But it's still, to me, in the back of my head, it's too little, too late. You shouldn't retain this guy, and when you did, you should have fired him several weeks ago.
But you're still doing something different. You're still proving to this fan base that no matter what the tradition has been throughout this organization's existence, it doesn't matter because you're here to change this organization. You're here to make it something better. And that starts with firing a head coach mid-season. I'm not saying, Kyle, that you do this for clout. I'm not, you know this. I'm not saying you fire Eberflus to prove you're somebody better than the rest of the GMs on this or in this organization that they've ever. No, you do it because he sucks, and he's coaching you into he's coaching you into losses consecutively. I would put 3 or 4 losses on this coaching staff this season, and over Eberflus's tenure, we know for a fact there's at least 8 games that he's lost. You know what's funny is they continuously put up the 5 games with a 90% win rate or whatever 90% chance of winning or higher. They continuously show these games. In 2022, Justin Fields, because we talk about the Vikings game from last year where Fields threw the 22-yard pass or whatever to Moore to set him up for the game-winning field goal. 2022, Justin Fields came back against the Pittsburgh Steelers with like 36 seconds left. He threw a touchdown to Darnell Mooney in the back left corner of the end zone. You remember this, Kyle? Mooney cutting out towards the goal line or towards the boundary. And Flus coached this. They lost with like 32 seconds left. The Steelers went down the field and got the field goal and lost. And people forget about that game. I wonder what the percentage, the percentage rate, the percentage what win percentage was on that game. It had to be at least 80% or higher.
Bernard,
This guy's been doing this for 2 years.
you got Chris.
It's time. If you're a GM and this is your head coach,
What's up, Chris
it's
Foster?
time to move up. Kyle, 1 in 68 million chance of losing these 6 games. It's time to move on. And I don't mean when the season ends. I mean now. Send a message now to
Yeah,
your
I
fan
think
base, to your players, to the coaches on this staff that are trying to win games, to the coaches that aren't losing it, to the coaches like Eric Washington and Thomas Brown, who are giving their best efforts to put this team in a position to win. Make one of them the leader of this team.
yeah, it's time to move on from Matt Eberflus. And you guys,
Chris Foster, thanks for joining us, man.
yeah, Chris Foster, thanks a lot, man. Fire Poles, fire Flus, or he says fire kill him, so he probably do have trouble there. But you guys, it's probably time to fire Matt Eberflus. It's probably time to end that run. It's probably time to end the show, guys. We appreciate everybody being on here, man. We always have a blast with you guys. You know, Mr. Shorty, Chris Foster, Ant Masper, and who am I missing here? We got Sean
Bruce.
Lugo, Breaking News Bruce, Burning Tracks Hyatt, everybody, Zach Lipsy, as always, Scott Angel, Ryan, Matt. We appreciate all you guys joining us as always, man. It makes this show so much easier when you guys interacting with us, put stuff up in the comments, giving us something to talk about. Once again, I want to give a shout out to River Street Tavern at East Dundee, our #1 sponsor, guys. We really appreciate them. Ideal Amusements also is another good sponsor for 4-Star Chicago Sports here. We appreciate you guys listening. Sean and I, or actually I will not. I think Brennan, are you going to be on Wednesday with Sean? I don't know. Did he ask you yet?
I can be.
Yeah, I think Brennan and Sean are going to be on with you guys Wednesday night. Unfortunately, I have to work, you guys. I work at a bar. Black Wednesday is a very, very popular day, guys. It's a big day for bars, so it's a good time for me to make money. And they wouldn't really make it too far without me there. So I will not be here on Wednesday, but Brennan and Sean will have the preview show for you guys for the Bears-Lions game on Thursday night. Would be Thanksgiving. I don't know if
Thursday morning. I think it's the first game.
Oh yeah, and then Brennan, are you and Dustin still going to be on Thursday night to talk about the game?
I don't believe so. I think this Wednesday show is going to be the show of the week.
Yeah, so you guys, Thanksgiving, it's time to spend time with your family, watch football. Not surprised they're not going to be on Thursday.
We might, if we do put something together, we'll get it out there for sure.
Yeah, so either way, you guys look out for Brandon and Sean to be on at 6:00 on Wednesday, and they'll be breaking down the Bears-Lions game for you. You guys, I will not see you again before Thanksgiving, so everybody out there, happy Thanksgiving. Be safe. Have fun with your family. We appreciate you guys. We love you guys. If you guys are still in the mood for talking football, You can catch Brennan, Darius, and I on the Chicago Sports Podcast at 8:30 tonight. We'll be breaking down talking about more about this Vikings Bears game.
Yeah,
Talking about
guys,
more
in
about
literally 26 minutes, we will be hosting another show. So
we'll be
come
talking
check
more
it out.
about the game, more about the future of the franchise. We appreciate you guys. We love you guys as always, man. I don't think I have Brennan. Do you have Sean's little things in here? I don't know how to play those.
Yeah, of course.
Can you? Do you know which one is his favorite one there? One he plays every show.
Anything you want to get out there before we wrap up?
Shit, fuck Green Bay.
All right.
Fuck yeah.
Let's go.
Fuck yeah.
That a boy. Awesome. Austin Booker. Thank you again, man.
There you guys. There you go. You heard it here first, man. Fuck Green Bay. Go Bears. Obviously, I think they're going to get destroyed by Detroit on Thursday, but hopefully it's at least a game so you can have some fun watching football. Love you guys.
Hopefully,
and,
Caleb Williams progresses one more week.
Yeah, let's see Caleb tear the Detroit secondary to pieces. Appreciate you guys. Love you guys, and we'll see you guys on Wednesday for Brandon. I'll see you guys next week.
Thanks, guys. Bear down, Chi-Town.
Bear down, guys.